Chapter 12. Meng Qi. The Cool Breeze Valley sect master's face was also red, and he hurriedly scolded his disciple. Don't be rude. The atmosphere in the entire hall became a little strange. The disciples of the Cool Breeze Valley looked at the familiar scene in front of them. A few days ago, a similar scene seemed to have played out. They thought in a daze. I didn't expect junior sister Meng Qi to really cure young palace master Chu, who even the sect master was helpless against. The Burning Sky Palace elder looked at his martial nephew. Chu Tianfeng blushed slightly, but he wasn't angry. He looked at Meng Qi again. As a nascent soul stage powerhouse, how could the elder have spirit stones on him? Cough. Little friend, you're really interesting. The Burning Sky Palace elder coughed lightly, and motioned for his disciple to step forward and take the 2 bamboo slips. Master. The disciple looked back at the bamboo slips quickly, and was also a little confused. A total of 5 6th grade spirit stones and 3 3rd grade spirit stones. Chu Tianfeng looked at Meng Qi. The second bamboo slip he gave didn't fill in the specific number of spirit stones. It seemed that Meng Qi had filled it in herself. She didn't take advantage of him, and what she asked for was just her price. Not being ripped off, Chu Tianfeng was a little unhappy. Saving the young palace master of the Burning Sky Palace, only charging so few spirit stones was too little. But it didn't matter. He looked at Meng Qi quietly, and his slightly red face became calm again. The corners of his lips were even slightly raised, revealing an extremely faint smile. Thank you. After receiving the elder's affirmation, the disciple handed a bag of spirit stones to Meng Qi. She took a look at it, and put it into her bracelet storage space. What did 5 6th grade spirit stones mean in the Trichiliacosm? In the Cool Breeze Valley where Meng Qi was, there would be some rewards for completing a sect mission. Generally, it was 10 to 100 1st grade spirit stones. The more difficult missions would at most give 100 2nd grade spirit stones. However, such a mission often took a month, or even longer, and there would be many dangers. 1,000 1st grade spirit stones could only be exchanged for 1 2nd grade spirit stone. 1,000 2nd grade spirit stones could only be exchanged for 1 3rd grade spirit stone. In other words, all of the Cool Breeze Valley's disciples would have to work hard for several years to gather these 6th grade spirit stones. If he took it outside the mountain gate in the city, even in the most prosperous and safest cities in the Eastern Land, which were attached to the 10 great sects of the Eastern Land, he could also buy a big house with 3 entrances and 3 exits. Of course, this didn't mean much to Xiuzha. The Xiuzha with high cultivation did not care so much about ling stones. What they needed were the treasures of heaven and earth. The disciples of Cool Breeze Valley looked at Meng Qi, who was standing beside Elder Yan. She was still dressed in a simple green robe, and her small face was bare of makeup. But who would have thought that this junior sister, who had just entered the sect half a year ago, had already become the wealthiest disciple in the Cool Breeze Valley? The disciples were both envious and a little upset. In the past few days, many people had been laughing at Meng Qi behind her back, thinking that she had overestimated herself. He deliberately used those words to attract young palace master Chu's attention. Now that he really had spirit stones in his pocket, it was likely that the vast majority of disciples would not be able to accumulate wealth in their entire lives. And Burning Sky Palace had really given it. In comparison, Lu Qingran shimmy didn't seem to be enough. That young palace master Chu didn't seem to like her very much. Meng Qi did not know what her fellow sect members were thinking. She put away the ling stones, and had a simple plan in her mind. The bracelet and storage bag could be exchanged for a better one. She could go to the Cloud Immortal Pavilion and buy some herbs she needed. Right now she was still too weak. She should buy some life-saving talismans. If she used them like this, 6th grade ling stones would not be enough. But this was it for now. She took the money and closed her eyes again. She stood next to Elder Yen with her head down. She hadn't finished reading the bamboo scroll. As to the elder of Burning Sky Palace and Chu Tianfeng, they probably didn't want to talk to her for now. Being able to stop a conversation was a skill to save one's life in troubled times. The elder of Burning Sky Palace was called Sun Yen, Great Circle Yuanying. He looked to be in his 40s, but in reality, he was 90 years old this year. He was one of the sect's elders who were very good at communicating, which was why he was sent to Cool Breeze Valley to assist Chu Tianfeng. Sun Yan watched as the disciple of Cool Breeze Valley counted the Ling stones and put them away. Then, she stood next to Yan Mingfeng obediently. He, who had always been good at dealing with people, was a little confused. He didn't know what to say for a long time. Originally, it was a joyous and harmonious atmosphere. Now it became very awkward. He watched as the bamboo scroll in Meng Qi's hand shone again. He knew that if he didn't speak, the other party would definitely continue reading. Sun Yan hurriedly coughed lightly. Little friend Meng. Meng Qi looked up blankly. Elder, is there something else? Cough cough. Sun Yan could only cough again. Martial nephew, thank you for saving me. He tried to pull the topic back on track. Our sect is very grateful. Elder, you're too polite. Meng Qi said lightly. It's right and proper to take money to treat illnesses. She waved her hand. Elder, you don't need to be grateful. The sect master of Cool Breeze Valley. The disciples of Cool Breeze Valley. Was this junior martial sister stupid? How could a few spirit stones be more important than the gratitude of Burning Sky Palace? Lu Qingran, who was standing next to the sect master, was even paler. She looked at Meng Qi in disbelief. She didn't understand this junior martial sister at all. Chu Tianfeng had already embarrassed her twice for junior martial sister Meng Qi. He clearly treated junior martial sister Meng differently. Why did junior martial sister Meng push him away? Cough. Cough cough cough. Sun Yan could only cough again. In his opinion, a few spirit stones were nothing at all. He was an elder of Burning Sky Palace. It was one of his responsibilities to recruit talents for the sect. This girl who could cure the poison of a 5th-grade demonic creature, at the Qi refinement stage, was a true talent. Although she was strange, she was a bit strange. But their Burning Sky Palace was rich. Thinking of this, Sun Yan coughed again. Our sect has a special medicine hall. Meng Qi. These words sounded a bit familiar. She couldn't help but glance at Chu Tianfeng. Was this elder trying to recruit her? Moreover, Sun Yan continued. Ordinary disciples of the medicine hall can receive 10 third-grade spirit stones as an allowance every day. If their position is promoted or their medical cultivation is improved, their daily spirit stones will also increase. 10 third-grade spirit stones a day couldn't compare to the 5 6th-grade spirit stones he paid to Meng Qi in one go. But many a little makes a mickle, and it was quite considerable. Sun Yan finished speaking and looked at Meng Qi expectantly. His gaze fell on the bamboo slips in Meng Qi's hand. There's also a special medical library. He cleared his throat. Cough. The sect attaches great importance to the medicine hall. One of the 5 green peaks of Burning Sky Palace with the densest qi was given to the medicine hall. Everyone in the hall can freely enter and exit the library. Apart from a very small number of bamboo slips that require the palace master's permission to read, the vast majority can be read at will. Zayashaba. Meng Qi's heart stirred. Burning Sky Palace was one of the top 10 sects in the Eastern Territory. Coupled with thousands of years of accumulation, the library's richness was far from what Cool Breeze Valley could compare to. But she was a bit hesitant. Where was Chu Tianfeng? Young friend, there's no need to rush. Sun Yan was experienced and could see that Meng Qi was moved. You can think about it carefully. Thank you, elder. Meng Qi cupped her hands and bowed. The expressions of the Cool Breeze Valley disciples became even more interesting. Everyone more or less knew that the sect would most likely be taken under Burning Sky Palace and seek protection. Apart from the sect master, most of the disciples were actually happy, compared to the insignificant Cool Breeze Valley that no one cared about in the Eastern Territory. The identity of a Burning Sky Palace disciple was definitely much more useful. It was just that everyone thought that Lu Qingran, who was brought back by Chu Tianfeng, would be Burning Sky Palace's guest of honor. Before, everyone was happy to gossip about Meng Qi behind her back, but in fact, it was more or less to curry favor with Lu Qingran. After all, everyone thought that Meng Qi definitely couldn't cure Chu Tianfeng. That day, it was just to attract the attention of the future palace master of Burning Sky Palace. Who would have thought that the situation would change in a few days? Junior sister Meng Qi really cured young Palace Master Chu, and the other party didn't even give junior sister Lu face for her. Moreover, this super powerful nascent soul elder of Burning Sky Palace actually personally invited junior sister Meng to join, and even gave her such generous conditions. The disciples' gazes towards Meng Qi became even more fervent. Sun Yan exchanged a few more polite words with the Cool Breeze Valley sect master. Everyone in the hall dispersed. Meng Qi still followed Yen Mingfeng and walked towards the library. You want to go? Yen Mingfeng looked at the silent disciple with a faint smile in his eyes. I'm a little tempted, Meng Qi said. A sect like Burning Sky Palace must have a very rich library. Yen Mingfeng nodded. Such an opportunity is very rare. He couldn't see through this disciple. When he thought of the other party asking for money in public, that nascent soul expert was completely stunned. The smile in Yen Mingfeng's eyes became even stronger. Besides, there are 10 third-grade spirit stones every day. Burning Sky Palace is really generous. He rarely joked with Meng Qi. You can go. Meng Qi's face turned red. She looked calm just now, and was magnanimous and fearless in front of a nascent soul cultivator. Now she was a little embarrassed. Do you know that other than Cloud Immortal Pavilion, there is also Sky Beyond in the 3,000 worlds? Yen Mingfeng saw that Meng Qi was shy and didn't say anything more. He walked forward with his hands behind his back and said, Sky Beyond is quite mysterious. No one knows where its main body is. However, there are many special items that even Cloud Immortal Pavilion can't find. As long as you have enough spirit stones, you can buy anything you want. I've heard of it. Meng Qi's heart moved. However, it was said that Sky Beyond was very mysterious. Unless someone recommended it, it might not even be possible to find its entrance. She also couldn't enter before her rebirth. Yen Mingfeng gently clasped one hand, and a small jade slip fell into his palm. Take it. He handed the jade slip to Meng Qi. Imprint your divine sense imprint. In the future, you can enter Sky Beyond through this jade slip. Thank you, Elder. But if you give it to me in the future, it's okay. Yen Mingfeng waved his hand. I have another one. Meng Qi blinked. Elder Yen was indeed an Aurus Core Elder of Cool Breeze Valley. However, even the sect master had probably never entered a place like Sky Beyond. It was said that there were very few cultivators in the 3,000 worlds who could enter Sky Beyond with this token. Most of them were above nascent soul. Meng Qi lowered her head and looked at the warm jade slip in her hand. Then she looked at Elder Yen, who had already walked ahead. The other party's light robe was slow, and he didn't look very tall. Meng Qi had only heard of some of his experiences. She respected this elder, who had the highest medical cultivation in the sect. Therefore, she liked to go to the library to ask Elder Yen for advice. It was like this before and after her rebirth. Unexpectedly, if there's anything you don't understand about the contents of the bamboo slip, you can come back to the library tomorrow. Yen Mifeng had already walked away. Yes. Meng Qi bowed to his back view. She put away the jade slip thoughtfully and turned to walk back to her room. The door was still tightly shut. When Meng Qi pushed the door open and entered, the little white tiger, who was lying on the bed, suddenly looked up. Probably seeing that it was her who had entered, the little white tiger lay down lazily again. Little Qi. Meng Qi went forward and stroked the little white tiger comfortably for a while. Its soft fur brushed against her palm. The little white tiger. It seemed to have completely given up struggling. Its narrowed eyes were full of helplessness. I might know what poison was in the wound on your claw, Meng Qi said as she took out the bamboo slip again. I received the spirit stones from Chu Tianfeng today. I should be able to buy all the herbs I need. She smiled and pinched the little white tiger's ear again. She was still worried at first, but now, Meng Qi took out the jade slip that Elder Yin gave her. If she could enter the legendary Sky Beyond, it would be much easier to buy all kinds of rare herbs. The little white tiger was lying lazily on the bed and letting her stroke it. When he saw the jade slip, a hint of surprise flashed across his blue eyes. Sky Beyond? He looked at Meng Qi and then at the jade slip. Cool Breeze Valley didn't seem so simple. Chapter 13. Meng Qi held the jade slip that recorded how to use it. She had heard of Sky Beyond before and knew that it was a very famous trading place among cultivators other than the Cloud Immortal Pavilion. It was said that one could buy everything they wanted here. Heavenly materials and earthly treasures. All kinds of magic treasures, herbs, poisons, weapons, it even included some spells. However, the Cloud Immortal Pavilion was in all 4 realms of the Trichiliocosm. It was jointly managed by the top 10 sects in the East, West, South and North realms. You could find a branch of the Cloud Immortal Pavilion in any city in the Trichiliocosm, including the small towns at the foot of the Cool Breeze Valley. Sky Beyond existed in the legends of cultivators most of the time. Mengqi had also heard of this place in her previous life. She also wanted to go in and take a look. It was the most mysterious and largest trading place among cultivators in the legends. However, she had never been able to enter. She closed her eyes and imprinted her spiritual consciousness on the jade slip, according to the method recorded on the jade slip. This was equivalent to binding a magic treasure. From now on, this jade slip could only be used by Mengqi. She opened her eyes and raised the jade slip high. On the jade slip that was the length of a finger, the 2 words Mengqi were engraved. Mengqi held the jade slip again and sent a bit of spiritual energy into it, according to the introduction of the entry method that she had just seen. She only felt her eyes light up, and she suddenly appeared in an unfamiliar world. Mengqi looked around and saw that the surrounding scenery was magnificent and winding. The green mountains were as black as ink, and the sky was filled with white clouds. Right in front of her, there was a very huge city. It was a magnificent city that Mengqi had never seen before. Compared to Qin City, the largest city in the east border that she had seen before her rebirth, this city was even more vast and boundless. Mengqi couldn't even see the end of it at a glance. Right above the city, there were 7 small islands floating. The clouds above blocked out the sun, making it impossible to see the situation on the island. Mengqi glanced at the island curiously. Another figure suddenly appeared not far from her. Mengqi looked over curiously. It was a male cultivator in his early 30s wearing a blue robe. He noticed Mengqi's gaze and turned to nod at her. The other party had a handsome face and a tall figure. Even though he was wearing the plainest blue robe, he still had an otherworldly temperament. Fellow Taoist, is this your first time here? He could tell that Mengqi was at a loss and curious. The male cultivator cupped his fist and said, Fellow Taoist, no matter what you want to buy or sell, you can go to the city ahead. There are special managers at the city gates who will give you a simple overview of the city. Thank you, fellow Taoist. Mengqi hurriedly returned the gesture. She smiled embarrassedly. This is indeed my first time entering the Outland. It's all right. The male cultivator smiled. This place gathers cultivators from the 3,000 worlds and 4 great worlds. Since this is the first time fellow Taoist has entered, you might as well ask the city manager for an identity token. He paused for a moment before explaining. In the realm beyond heaven, everyone can create another name for themselves. Of course, you can also use your real name. Okay. Mengqi nodded. She was mildly amused. Such a grand city, a floating island in the air, and a nameplate that could hide one's identity, allowing for free trade. She felt that the idea of the person who created this place was very interesting. Fellow Taoist, if you have any more questions, you can ask me on the way. The male cultivator politely waved his hand forward. He was quite polite to Mengqi. Moreover, in this outland, it was just a wisp of spiritual consciousness entering, so it was not dangerous. Mengqi returned the gesture and walked side by side with him toward the huge city ahead. Fellow Taoist, may I ask where these 7 floating islands in the clouds are? Mengqi asked. The further they walked, the more they could feel the vastness of the city. Even the floating island in the air seemed to have become even more imposing. The 3 at the bottom. The male cultivator pointed to the 3 smallest floating islands that were closest to the ground and introduced. These are the 3 major auction houses of the Outland, Heaven, Earth and Mystic. Heaven, Earth and Mystic were higher realms after the 1st to 9th realms. For example, the path of medical cultivation was from 1st to 9th realms. Further up were Mystic, Earth and Heaven. It was said that since the 3,000 worlds, medical cultivators who could reach the Mystic realm could be counted on one hand. further up were earth and heaven, and they were even rarer. Almost all of them had the opportunity to break through the ninth realm and enter a new realm before the Mahayana cultivators ascended. He did not expect the owner of the Outland to be so domineering, directly naming the 3 auction houses with heaven, earth, and mystic. The male cultivator seemed to have guessed Meng Qi's thoughts, but he only smiled slightly and did not say much. Cultivators who had just entered the Outland could not feel the strength of the owner of this place at all. It was normal for them to be surprised. The 2 floating islands above, Yi Zichen said. The male cultivator seemed to be very familiar with this place. They are the places where the 10 major sects of the 3,000 worlds, the East Realm, the West Realm, the South Realm, and the North Realm. The items they sell are all concentrated there. Further up, Meng Qi looked in the direction the male cultivator pointed. Only the 2 largest floating islands were left. The shorter one is the best restaurant in the realm beyond heaven. All the delicacies, and treasures in the world that you can think of, you can see them here. He loved reading books. As the male cultivator spoke, he pointed to the city on the ground. There are also delicacies from all over the world in the city, but it is said that they are far inferior to the Outland restaurant. He paused and said, "This restaurant belongs to the owner of this place. Meng Qi. What a big deal." It was also domineering enough. Even the 10 major sects of the 4 realms of the 3,000 worlds were suppressed under their feet. As for the highest floating island, the male cultivator smiled regretfully. It is said that only the owner of this place can go up, and no one knows what is there. The Outland has been established for 300 years, and no one has been able to step foot in it. Meng Qi looked at the highest floating island. In fact, that island was not big, and it was not directly above the city. It floated in the southwest direction, and the surroundings were also surrounded by clouds. It looked like an immortal island on the sea. "Thank you, fellow Taoist." Meng Qi retracted his gaze and bowed to the male cultivator again. "You are welcome." As they spoke, the 2 of them had already walked out of the city gate. Standing here, Meng Qi felt the vastness of the entire city. Other than that, the male cultivator said, there are countless mystic realms in the Outland. It is said that this place is the largest blessed land in the 3,000 worlds, and it has not been fully explored yet. If you can pass the assessment, you can join the exploration team and go to those mystic realms to search for treasures with others. He shook his head in shame. It's just that if you want to have enough power in the Outland, you need to be at least at the spirit severing stage to be able to split your spiritual sense and enter this place. I have just broken through the golden core stage and entered the nascent soul stage. I am far from qualified. Meng Qi could not do it. She had heard that the Outland needed to be at least at the spirit severing stage to have great opportunities. It seemed that he was talking about those mystic realms. It seemed that the owner of the Outland was really too strong to be able to turn this place into the largest free trading place between cultivators. To be able to build such a huge city and 7 floating islands here. The owner of this place should not be a single person, but a large sect. Meng Qi looked at the neat avenue inside the city gate. She knew that the 3,000 worlds were vast and wonderful. Even before her rebirth, she had only seen the smallest corner of this world. At this moment, she was standing in such a mysterious behemoth. Meng Qi could not help but sigh. No wonder this place was called the Outland. It was really another world outside the 3,000 worlds. "If you don't have any other questions, I'll take my leave first," the male cultivator said to Meng Qi. "Okay." Meng Qi bowed in return. "Thank you for your guidance, fellow Taoist." There were city managers beside the city gate. Meng Qi followed the male cultivator's guidance and went forward to ask for a distribution map of the city. This city with countless shops was called the Outland City. The city was divided into 9 areas, including weapons, magic treasures, Taoist robes, all kinds of refining materials, spirit beasts, spells of course. There were also areas that specialized in selling medicines, poisons, and refined pills. In addition, the most central area was a place for free trading. If one did not know how to classify their things, or had items that they did not recognize, they could directly trade with people in the free trading market. If one wanted to go to the three major auction houses of Heaven, Earth, and Mystic, one could directly contact the management of the Outland City. They would guide one to meet the people at the auction house. A special cultivator would determine the value of your things, and then decide whether to accept the auction, or which auction house to auction it at. Meng Qi followed the male cultivator's instructions, and asked for an identity nameplate. Usually, that thing was useless, but the things bought in the Outland could not be directly taken out of here. With the nameplate, one could use this nameplate to collect the things one bought at the relay stations, set up in the major cities of the Outland City. Spirit stones were also paid when one received the items. The Outland City would keep it a secret for you, and it would be very fast and safe. Meng Qi thought for a moment and wrote the words Little Qi on the nameplate. She now had several 6th-grade spirit stones on her, and was definitely the richest disciple in the Cool Breeze Valley. She did not know what she could buy here. Meng Qi determined the direction, and decided to first take a look at the place that sold medicine. The city was very large, but there were countless teleportation arrays in every corner. Meng Qi asked the management staff, and stepped into one of the arrays. In the blink of an eye, she appeared in the East City. Before she even started shopping, the fragrance of medicinal herbs assailed her nose. This was Meng Qi's favorite smell, and her mood improved a lot. This area basically sold medicinal herbs of various grades, poisons, and refined pills. Meng Qi thought of the records in the bamboo slip that Elder Yin gave her, and casually stepped into one of the shops. Hello. There were no other customers in the shop, only a spirited shop assistant behind the counter. What do you need, fellow Taoist? That person hurriedly greeted her with a smile. Do you have jackdaw grass? Meng Qi asked. According to the records in the bamboo slip, jackdaw grass would leave a silver mark on the wound after being injured, causing the person to bleed nonstop. Meng Qi did not dare to conclude that Little White Tiger was poisoned by jackdaw grass, just based on the description in the book. She had to buy one and verify it before she could be sure. Yes, the shop assistant quickly said. How many stalks do you need? How many spirit stones for one stalk? Meng Qi asked again. 26th-grade spirit stones, the shop assistant said again. Meng Qi. According to the records in the bamboo slip, jackdaw grass was 6th grade. Meng Qi guessed that it would not be cheap. However, she did not expect that as the richest disciple in the Cool Breeze Valley, she could not even afford a stalk of grass. And this was only one stalk. If she wanted to detoxify Little Qi, it would probably cost at least a few hundred 6th-grade spirit stones. She did not think that it was too expensive, and did not want to buy it. It was just that at that moment, Meng Qi was very regretful that she had only accepted 10 times the spirit stones from Chu Tianfeng. Chapter 14. I'm sorry. She watched as the young cultivator in the shop neatly took out the box containing the jackdaw grass. Meng Qi quickly waved her hand. The price is too high. I can't afford it now. The man was stunned and looked at Meng Qi's calm expression. He couldn't help but laugh. It's okay. You can take a look at the appearance of the herbs in my shop. He opened the box enthusiastically. Inside the wooden box, there were about 10 stalks of jackdaw grass neatly placed. They were shaped like the feathers of a jackdaw. They were black and had many small fluffy hairs on them. In addition, if one looked carefully, they could see silver spots flashing on them occasionally. My sect is the Magical Herb Pavilion in the Northland. The man introduced. If you need more herbs that can only be found in the Northland in the future, you can come to my shop. TSXSW. Leahy was a little proud. Many of our herbs are the best in the Northland in terms of appearance and efficacy. Okay. Meng Qi nodded. Thank you. You're welcome. The disciple of the Magical Herb Pavilion carefully put away the box. He looked at Meng Qi. The young girl looked to be in her 20s. Her face was elegant. Her facial features were very delicate. Her eyebrows were high and her nose was straight. She had the rare heroic spirit and calmness of an ordinary girl. The Magical Herb Pavilion, which could open such a pharmacy in the realm beyond heaven, was one of the top medical cultivation sects in the Northland. The shop assistant couldn't help but be curious. Why are you looking for jackdaw grass? I've seen records of jackdaw grass in a book. Meng Qi definitely wouldn't tell a stranger about the little white tiger. So I want to buy one to study its medicinal properties. Puffed. The shop assistant couldn't help but laugh. Although he was a shop assistant in his own sex pharmacy in the realm beyond heaven, he was already a golden core cultivator in the sect. You really do have the demeanor of a member of my generation. He pondered for a moment. How about this? I can only charge you 18 6th-grade spirit stones for one stalk of jackdaw grass. If you have enough spirit stones, you can come to me again. Okay, thank you. Meng Qi nodded at him. Even if she had 18 6th-grade spirit stones, she was still far from being able to afford it. It wasn't even a fraction. She looked around. This pharmacy seemed to be the largest one nearby. It seemed that the shop assistant wasn't bragging. The magical herb pavilion did sound powerful. Meng Qi estimated that the medicinal herbs that could be sold in the outland would not be low-grade. The things here wouldn't be too cheap. Fellow Taoist, if you don't have enough spirit stones at the moment, we also accept barter, the shop assistant said. He had a good impression of this peerlessly beautiful girl, who always looked calm and composed. Although the sky beyond heaven didn't specify the cultivation level of the cultivators who could enter, those who could enter this place wouldn't be too weak. As far as the disciples of the Pavilion of Spirit Herbs knew, those who could enter were at least at the 5th or 6th stage of Jindan. For Xiuzha of Lianqi and Juji, the changes in appearance caused by age were no different from normal people. After a Xiuzha formed their core, the marks left on their appearance over time would fade. A Jindan Xiuzha after 10 years, the change in appearance was about the same as a Lianqi and Juji Xiuzha after 1 year. If a Xiuzha wanted to keep their appearance unchanged, they had to at least reach the great circle of Yuanying. In other words, a Xiuzha's appearance was about the same as when he entered the Jindan stage. Of course, if a Xiuzha had limited talent and couldn't break through to the Yuanying stage, he would eventually grow old. The disciple of the Pavilion of Spirit Herbs looked at Meng Qi's young face, which clearly still had a bit of a girl's childishness. He thought to himself that a Xiuzha who could successfully form her core at such a young age could be regarded as a heavenly genius. He didn't know which sect this disciple came from. They might not have many spirit stones on them, but they would have some valuable 5th-grade spirit stones that could be exchanged. Thinking of this, the disciple of the Pavilion of Spirit Herbs smiled more warmly. Fellow Taoist, if you don't need any magic arts, medicinal herbs, refined medicines, including fire-controlling talisman formations, of course, magic weapons can be used to exchange for medicinal herbs. Okay. Meng Qi nodded. She couldn't take out these things now. However, she had already mentally prepared herself that she might return empty-handed today. Thank you. She nodded to the disciple of the Pavilion of Spirit Herbs again, then turned and walked out of the pharmacy. Meng Qi didn't go to other shops. She estimated that the final result wouldn't be too different. She really didn't worry too much about spirit stones in the past. In her previous life, before leaving Cool Breeze Valley, she didn't need to spend too much money. Later, she met her master. Now that she thought about it, her medical skills and cultivation relied on refining large amounts of medicine and treating illnesses to improve. These all required a large number of medicinal herbs. And these medicinal herbs also required a large number of spirit stones to exchange. Meng Qi walked slowly on the flat and wide road in Sky Beyond Sky City. She had never worried about medicinal herbs and spirit stones before. It wasn't that she was rich, but that someone had solved these problems, allowing her to focus on cultivation without any scruples. Master, Meng Qi muttered silently in her heart. She was refreshed. Therefore, she would definitely cure little Qi. It didn't matter whether that white-robed man was her master or not. It didn't matter whether he was really the white tiger perfected Lord Chu Tianfeng spoke of, or whether he was of the same clan as Little White Tiger. As long as there was a little relationship, she wouldn't miss it. She would cure little Qi. Then, what she needed now was to earn enough spirit stones. One stalk of jackdaw grass required 26th-grade spirit stones. More medicinal herbs were needed to detoxify little Qi. And this was only a superficial wound. Little Qi had more complicated internal injuries in her body. Meng Qi still couldn't figure out how she was injured. In addition to earning money, she had to improve her cultivation as soon as possible. The Qi refinement realm was still too weak, and her second-grade medical skills were far from enough. Meng Qi suddenly became energetic. She lowered her head and stroked her wrist. The bracelet and storage bag were still beside her. However, according to the manager of Sky Beyond Sky City, the things inside could only be displayed. If she really wanted to sell them, she needed the post house set up by Sky Beyond Sky in the Trichiliocosm to help deliver the goods. First-grade pills? That person looked at Meng Qi in surprise. I'm sorry, fellow Taoist, but the lowest level in Sky Beyond Sky's auction is fourth-grade pills. He smiled politely, but his rejection was very obvious. First-grade pills are easier to buy. Perhaps most people won't specially go to the auction house to spend time buying them. Can I trouble you to take me to see the fellow Taoist in charge of appraising pills? Meng Qi asked politely. That person hesitated. He looked at Meng Qi. The nameplate that she submitted showed that it was indeed her first time entering Sky Beyond Sky today. First-grade pills? He hadn't used or bought these things for a long time. However, since this little girl could enter Sky Beyond Sky, she was definitely not an ordinary person. The manager thought about it and nodded. All right. Thank you. Please come with me. That person led Meng Qi to the place where the teleportation formation was located. In addition to the teleportation formations that led to different areas of Sky Beyond Sky City, there were also a few slightly different colored ones. That person led Meng Qi into one of them. In a flash, the two of them appeared in a spacious courtyard. The courtyard was quite elegant, and every flower and tree was unique and ingenious. White clouds seemed to be beside them. A cool breeze blew on their faces, making them feel very comfortable. Were they on those floating islands? Meng Qi looked at the surrounding clouds and mist, and silently sized up the surrounding scenery. She now admired the owner of Sky Beyond Sky to the extreme. If it wasn't for a person with great ambition and vision, it was impossible to create such a place. That manager led Meng Qi to one of the rooms and knocked on the door. Senior, a cultivator sent you a refined pill. Please appraise it. Please come in. A voice as warm as the spring breeze came from the room. Fellow Taoist, please come in. That person opened the door for Meng Qi and made a please gesture. However, he did not enter. As soon as Meng Qi entered, she saw a man in a blue robe sitting behind a desk. The room was filled with the fragrance of Chinese medicine. There were 2 rows of tall bookshelves on both sides of the wall. Countless bamboo slips and jade slips were scattered on the shelves. The blue-robed man looked to be in his early 30s. He was elegant and handsome. He held a bamboo slip in his hand and looked focused. When he heard the door open, he asked without looking up, "What's the grade of the pill?" "First grade," Meng Qi said calmly. The manager who was guarding the door froze for a moment. The blue-robed man suddenly looked up and looked at Meng Qi in surprise. "What grade?" "First grade." Meng Qi's expression was still calm. She took out a green pill from her bracelet storage bag and held it with one hand and handed it to the man. "First grade?" The blue-robed man laughed. He threw away the bamboo slip in his hand and looked at Meng Qi with a faint smile. Cloud Immortal Pavilion will sell first-grade medicine in any city in the Trichiliocosm. The price is clearly marked and it is fair. Fellow Taoist, you can go there and set your own price according to the price of Cloud Immortal Pavilion. Okay. Meng Qi's expression was still calm. Of course, she could hear the faint sarcasm in the man's words. This breeze pill is a little different from the breeze pill of Cloud Immortal Pavilion. Meng Qi said calmly, and placed the green pill, with a faint medicinal fragrance, in front of the man. The blue-robed man. He looked at Meng Qi and looked past her at the manager standing at the door. The blue-robed man, Xiang Linma, was a cultivator in the Xian auction house who specialized in appraising medicinal herbs and pills. Although he was only a nascent soul cultivator, his medical skills had already broken through the 5th grade. Xiang Linma was born in an ordinary medical cultivation sect. He was extremely talented in medical skills, and the sect could not help him improve. He was also unwilling to accept the recruitment of those large sections. He felt that he was entangled in worldly affairs and had no freedom. It just so happened that the owner of this place told him that there were countless bamboo slips related to medical cultivation here. He could use them and read them at will, except that he could not take them away. Every year, he only needed to stay on the floating island where the Xian auction house was located for half a year to be responsible for appraising medicinal herbs and pills. The rest of the time could be arranged freely. Xiang Linma liked medical skills, and such a thing was really what he wanted. He had been here for almost 7 years, and had even seen semi-finished 8th grade pills. This girl was the first one who dared to bring a first-grade pill here. Okay. Xiang Limo reached out to take Meng Qi's pill. Let me see what's the difference. The Cloud Immortal Pavilion has already done the best for pills below 3rd grade. Even 4th grade, 5th grade, and even cultivators with higher medical skills can hardly surpass it. He could not see Meng Qi's cultivation, but he was an expert in medical cultivation. With a glance at this first-grade Clear Breeze pill, he could see that the person who made the pill was very low level, and his medical skills were at most 2nd grade. As Xiang Lima spoke, he casually picked up the Clear Breeze pill. Yes, the formula is correct, and the medicinal properties are correct. It can cure poisons below 3rd grade, but its efficacy is reduced for 2nd grade poisons. 3rd grade poisons are almost useless. It is indeed a. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, and his gaze swept over Meng Qi. The girl's eyebrows were picturesque, and her elegance was unparalleled. Her expression was still indifferent, and would not change, because of the faint sarcasm in his words. Ha! Xiang Lima chuckled and said word by word. First grade Clear Breeze pill. Can't you see anything else? Meng Qi asked. What else can I see? Xiang Lima was about to laugh because of this girl. This girl could enter the Outland at such a young age, and she was so good-looking. However, this was the Outland, and people would not coax her just because she was good-looking. At least Xiang Lima would not. No matter how long I stare at it, it won't become a 9th grade. Huh. Halfway through his sentence, Xiang Lima suddenly widened his eyes in surprise. This is. He looked at the Clear Breeze pill in his hand in disbelief, as if it really became a 9th grade pill in an instant. This is. Xiang Lima was tongue-tied, and his face suddenly turned red. But soon, 2 rays of excitement shot out from his eyes. How did you do it? I can't tell you how I did it, but can this first-grade Clear Breeze pill be auctioned? Meng Qi asked again. Yes. Xiang Lima grabbed his nameplate and called out to the manager standing at the door. I'll buy it. As he spoke, he glanced at Meng Qi cautiously. 105th grade spirit stones, is that okay? Sword cultivators and Dharma cultivators from the Outland would not be too interested in them. Medical Shio might buy it for research purposes, but a Shioja would not buy too much. Meng Qi thought for a moment. Do you have jackdaw grass? Jackdaw grass? Xiang Lima thought for a moment. That's a herb unique to the north. I don't have it here. However, he had been in the Heavens Beyond City for a long time, so he reacted quickly. The few famous medical sects in the north all have shops in the Heavens Beyond City. Spirit Herb Pavilion, Rejuvenation Hall, Soaring Flower Valley. Fellow Taoist, you can go there and take a look. Meng Qi looked at Xiang Lima and asked, May I ask if you've been to the east? She had never seen this person appear beside Lu Qingran. However, she was not Lu Qingran's follower. Who knew how many people she knew and how many people admired her? Meng Qi comforted herself. Moreover, she was really short of money now. The east. Xiang Lima smiled slightly. I'm a Shioja from the south, but I've been longing for the east for a long time. Sooner or later I'll travel there. A Shioja who looked quite young and elegant. Male. He would go to the east in the future. Then no problem, it's you. Meng Qi nodded silently in her heart. 2 6th grade spirit stones for 1. With a flip of her fingers, she quickly took out 4 Clear Breeze pills from her bracelet storage bag. Xiang Linma. This, he sucked in a cold breath. He had seen people raise the price, but he had never seen such a ruthless person. In the blink of an eye, the price had increased tenfold. This was a first-grade elixir after all. Xiang Lima looked at Meng Qi in a daze. The other party's gaze was as clear as a mountain stream clean. Her big black and white eyes were like cold stars, and her expression was calm. She didn't look like the kind of person who would extort others. Xiang Lima didn't understand. He could afford 10 6th-grade spirit stones. However, based on his experience, the maximum price of this item would be 300 5th-stage spirit stones each. After all, it was a first-grade elixir. Fellow Taoist, Xiang Lima thought for a moment and said, "Look, this is a first-grade clear breeze pill. In the Cloud Immortal Pavilion, it's only 100 first-grade spirit stones each." "I know," Meng Qi nodded, "but that place doesn't sell my clear breeze pill." "Although that's the case, 2 6th-grade spirit stones are too," Meng Qi said calmly. "Only I have this kind of clear breeze pill. It's exclusive." "That's right, but so I can name my own price." She continued, "You can choose not to buy it." As Meng Qi spoke, she turned her hand and was about to put away the clear breeze pill. Xiang Lima, Okay. 10 6th-grade spirit stones it is." He hurriedly stopped Meng Qi and handed his nameplate to the manager of the Sky Beyond City. This beautiful girl was quite ruthless. "What should I do now?" Meng Qi turned her head and asked the manager. "First, I'll ask Mr. Xiang to imprint his mark on the 5 elixirs here. Then, you can go to the relay station of the Sky Beyond City in your city and hand over these 5 elixirs to our people there. After verifying Mr. Xiang's mark, they will give you the spirit stones he paid." Meng Qi nodded. This was quite interesting. If they only relied on the mark to identify things, the staff of the relay station of the Sky Beyond City would not know what they were selling. So lively? What are they doing? Just as she was silently admiring the interesting and safe way to buy and sell things in the Sky Beyond City, a lazy female voice suddenly came from outside the door. Meng Qi turned her head and saw a beautiful female cultivator standing at the door with a smile. The female cultivator looked a few years older than Meng Qi. She was wearing a blue robe, and the loose robe was tied by a narrow belt. Her waist was like a bee's and her back was like an ape's, making her look very slim. The female cultivator was also very good-looking. In fact, just looking at her facial features, she was far from being as exquisite and perfect as Meng Qi's senior sister Lu Qingran. But when she smiled, her eyes were beautiful. Coupled with the lingering laziness in her expression, she looked both elegant and charming. There was an indescribable charm that Meng Qi had never seen before. What are you doing here?" Xiang Lima seemed to be a little afraid of her. He jumped up and took a big step back. "I'm working. Don't disturb me." The female cultivator chuckled, and a hint of a smile flashed through her clear eyes. She looked at Xiang Lima as if she was looking at a younger brother. Obviously, the female cultivator looked much younger than Xiang Lima. "Little sister." Her charming eyes fell on Meng Qi's face. "Are you new? You look so cute." "I'm here to sell medicine," Meng Qi answered honestly. At first glance, she didn't know the female cultivator's identity, but she had an inexplicable good impression of her. It was probably because the other party was also a very good-looking woman, but her beauty was completely different from Lu Qingran's. Meng Qi felt happy looking at her. "Oh," the female cultivator's eyes flashed. "What kind of pill? Can I take a look?" "Of course," Meng Qi answered while handing over the Qingfeng pill in her hand. "Shui Jinwen." Without waiting for the female cultivator to take the pill, Xiang Lima blushed. "I've already ordered this. Have you already imprinted it?" Shui Jinwen's slender fingers carelessly combed her hair. "If not, shouldn't the highest bidder get it?" She glanced at Xiang Lima with a smile, and then turned her eyes back to Meng Qi. "You've been here for so long. Don't you know the rules of the auction house?" "Huh? First-grade Qingfeng pill?" This time, even the female cultivator named Shui Jinwen widened her eyes in surprise. She looked at Meng Qi in surprise, and then looked down at the cyan pill. "It looks like..." "Huh?" Shui Jinwen sighed softly. "What an ingenious idea." She closed her slender fingers. "Little sister, what price did he bid?" "I'll pay you double." "Shui Jinwen." Xiang Lima was angry. "Don't go too far. The highest bidder gets it." Shui Jinwen put away the pill with a chuckle. "Don't tell me you want to break the rules?" "Humph," Xiang Lima snorted. However, he quickly said, "This Qingfeng pill costs 2 6th-grade spirit stones each. Do you want to pay me double?" "Oh, Xue Jinwen raised her eyebrows. Why not? You? Xiang Linma choked. After a moment of silence, he suddenly said, Then I'll bid 15 6th-grade spirit stones. I'll buy 3. Anyway, he wasn't going to buy them to eat. He was more careful and didn't care if he lost 2. Otherwise, Xue Jinwen would take them all away. No need, Meng Qi said lightly. 2 6th-grade spirit stones was a high enough price. She took out 5 more pills from her bracelet storage bag and handed them to Xiang Linma. It's the same price as before. A total of 10 6th-grade spirit stones. Xiang Linma was stunned. Previously, he had thought that this girl was greedy for money and was very ruthless in raising the price. With Xue Jinwen, a girl who never cared about spirit stones, stirring up trouble, he would probably have to pay a lot of money today. However, he was unwilling to give up just like that. He didn't expect this girl to not take advantage of the situation and raise the price. Xiang Linma was a little confused as he put his own mark on the 5 pills that Meng Qi handed over. When he returned them to her, he couldn't help but look up at her. The girl's face was elegant and exquisite, and her nose was sharp. Her eyes were as clear as the stars in the sky. What a strange girl. Xiang Linma sighed in his heart. What kind of sect could produce such a young disciple, with such a calm and collected temperament? Xue Jinwen also smiled. Then I'll also, sister, 200 5th-grade spirit stones each, Meng Qi said. Puffed. Xue Jinwen couldn't help but laugh. Little girl, you're very interesting. She couldn't help but gently stroke Meng Qi's white and tender cheeks with her slender fingers. Thank you, little girl. She put her own mark on the pills in her hand and threw the nameplate to the manager. If you have any problems in the heavens beyond Heaven City in the future, you can come to me at any time. By the way, Xue Jinwen thought for a moment and said, if you come to the West World in the future, you can also come to me. Elder sister likes such a clever, intelligent, sensible and sweet little sister the most. She glanced at Meng Qi and reminded her, Little girl, this is your first time in the heavens beyond heaven, right? Don't waste too much time. It's time to leave. Okay. Meng Qi was in a good mood. Then I'll take my leave first. She nodded at Xue Jinwen and Xiang Linma. Under the guidance of the manager, she left the small courtyard and walked toward the teleportation array again. You're really lucky to have caught fellow Taoist Xue's attention. The manager shook his head with a smile. If I didn't know that today is your first time in the heavens beyond Heaven City, I would have thought that you knew fellow Taoist Xue's identity in advance. Ah, Meng Qi was calculating her gains today and looked up in surprise. This fellow Taoist Xue is. The next time you have a chance to meet her, you can ask her yourself. The man said, since she promised you that you can go to the West World to find her, she probably won't hide her identity from you. And as for fellow Taoist Xue, there should be many people in the 3,000 worlds who know her. Xue Jinwen Xue. Meng Qi's heart suddenly moved. She knew that there was a large medical cultivation sect in the West World that could be ranked in the top 3 medical cultivation sects in the 3,000 worlds. The sect master there was surnamed Xue. Okay. She nodded and smiled at the manager. Thank you, fellow Taoist. Then Meng Qi restrained her divine sense according to the introduction she had read before. In the room where Meng Qi lived alone in the cool breeze valley, she slowly opened her eyes and the light of the jade slip in her hand gradually dimmed. She lowered her head and looked at the warm and small jade slip in her palm. She didn't expect the legendary heavens beyond heaven to be so powerful. Moreover, it was quite interesting. Meng Qi put away the jade slip and turned her head to see the little white tiger lying lazily beside her. It seemed to be sleeping. Its left front paw stretched out and gently rested on her body. Its furry little paw looked exceptionally cute. It was white and looked like a cloud. Meng Qi thought that she was almost able to buy the jackdaw grass, and the elixir pills were sold smoothly. She was in a very good mood. She reached out and rubbed Little Qi's head and scratched his chin. Little Qi, I found the jackdaw grass. I should be able to get it soon. Meng Qi asked, Are you happy? After saying that, she jumped up and walked out of the door. I'm going down the mountain. Little Qi, you'd better stay in the room obediently. She was prepared to go to the post house in heavens beyond heaven to complete the transaction and get the spirit stones. The door opened with a creak. Outside the door, the young man in black suddenly turned around. You, Chu Tianfeng looked at Meng Qi. You're finally out. Oh. Meng Qi's good mood faded a lot when she saw him. However, she quickly remembered. Young Palace Master Chu. Yes. Chu Tianfeng asked. What's the matter? He had waited at the door for a long time. He knew that Meng Qi was going to treat the little white tiger and would definitely need help recently. 1200 KSW. Nadi's cultivation had recovered, so he was definitely her best assistant now. Chu Tianfeng even felt a little lucky. He could meet Meng Qi so early. But she didn't have. Meng Qi felt that she couldn't favor one and discriminate against the other. Xiang Linma still didn't know if he would really meet Lu Qingran. But this Chu Tianfeng was proven to be senior sister Lu's subordinate. She looked up and met Chu Tianfeng's shining and expectant eyes. She slowly spoke. I sold 5 clear breeze pills to someone. 2 6th-grade spirit stones each. Meng Qi said. I used 15 pills to detoxify your poison. She reminded Chu Tianfeng. Chapter 16. Chu Tianfeng was stunned for a moment. His face turned from white to red, and then slowly back to white. He slowly lowered his head. He counted out 36th-grade spirit stones from the new storage bag that the sect elder had given him, and handed them to Meng Qi. 15 pills, a total of 30 spirit stones. The young man's long back was straight, his long eyelashes were drooping, and his thin lips were tightly pursed. In his open palm, there were 30 neatly stacked spirit stones. They were sparkling and very dazzling. Meng Qi was stunned. She originally thought that Chu Tianfeng would be so angry that he would turn around and leave. She really didn't have the idea of asking him to pay later. After all, this was only a first-grade breeze pill. For medical cultivators like Lin Ma and Xue Jinwen, it could be sold at a high price because the refining method was very special. They were willing to pay 2 6th-grade spirit stones, or even higher to buy it, because they wanted to study the refining method. Of course, if they could really deduce the refining method from a single pill, Meng Qi would sincerely admire them. That was really not an easy task. Back then, she and her teacher had also tried for nearly half a year and thousands of talisman arrays before they finally succeeded. If it was the refining method, then it would not be a matter of a few 6th-grade spirit stones. That was probably a secret that a medical cultivator sect was willing to exchange with all the power of the sect. Both Lin Ma and Xue Jinwen were medical cultivators, so of course they knew. Therefore, they didn't even ask about the refining method. They just bought the pills and went back to study it themselves. However, they didn't need to use more than 10 pills at all. It was precisely because of this that for Lin Ma, spending a few 6th-grade spirit stones to buy medicine was nothing at all. He probably also knew that if this pill was really put up for auction, there would definitely be sects that would be willing to buy it back at a higher price. If he wanted to participate in the auction, he wouldn't be able to compete. However, it was different for Chu Tianfeng. For him, this thing was an antidote. Even if it was better than an ordinary first-grade breeze pill, it was not so good that it was worth 1,000 times the price to buy it. Fanchun Kanshu. Meng Qi originally thought that after the proud young palace master Chu heard his words, he would fly into a rage and leave in disdain. Now that she had a way to make money, she didn't need to catch Chu Tianfeng and harvest its wool. She said this because she wanted to drive Chu Tianfeng away, so that he wouldn't appear in front of her all the time. When senior marshal sister Lu Qingran found out, she would be angry. Perhaps the heavenly Tao would punish him for his own daughter. And what was wrong with this young palace master Chu? In her previous life, she had saved his life. She didn't mention anything about money, and he acted as if he didn't know about it at all. Later, Meng Qi was locked up for 3 months. He did not even come to see her, let alone speak up for her and let her out. Otherwise, Meng Qi could have at least asked him to bring him some medicinal herbs and spells, so that he wouldn't have wasted 3 months. This time, she took so much money and raised the price in front of everyone, but the other party insisted on sticking to her. She couldn't even chase them away. As expected, Meng Qi thought of the words of a female cultivator she once met. People, especially men, were all cheap. They never knew how to cherish things that they could easily get without putting in the slightest effort. Meng Qi thought for a while, and reached out to take the spirit stones. She looked at Chu Tianfeng's expression without blinking, hoping that he would fly into a rage and leave. Young Palace Master Chu lowered his eyes, and stood obediently in the same place. His expression was normal, and no one could tell that he was unhappy. Meng Qi, she thought for a while and said seriously, "From now on, we don't owe each other anything. I don't have much fortune, and I just want to focus on cultivation. I don't want to be entangled with too much karma. It's best that you and I are just acquaintances from now on. Of course, young Palace Master Chu can also pretend that you don't know me at all. That would be the most appreciated." "You." Chu Tianfeng suddenly raised his eyes and looked at Meng Qi. "Also," Meng Qi added, "don't tell anyone about the little white tiger. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first." Meng Qi bowed to him. After she finished speaking, she walked out of the sect without looking back. Previously, because she was anxious to save little Qi, she had almost been tricked by this Chu Tianfeng. What was the Great Soul Oath? After the Great Soul Oath was made, the person who made the oath could not go against the words of the person he swore to give his soul to. Then what Meng Qi said just now, that she hoped that they would just be acquaintances when they met, was also her request. If Chu Tianfeng couldn't do it, then he would be intolerable to heaven and earth. With the elder of Burning Sky Palace holding the fort and Chu Tianfeng, the young palace master there, the following crisis would definitely not threaten the safety of Cool Breeze Valley and the people of Cool Breeze Town at the foot of the mountain. When Meng Qi arrived at Cool Breeze Town, it was still bustling with people, no different from usual. There were not many people in Cool Breeze Town, and the city was also very small. After all, Cool Breeze Valley was only a very small sect, the kind that was not even ranked in the East Land. The people living in the town were all ordinary people, who could not cultivate at all. As soon as they saw Meng Qi, they immediately surrounded her and greeted her warmly. "Little Dr. Meng is here." "Hello, little Dr. Meng." "Little Dr. Meng, you came at the right time. The oranges in my family's orchard have just come out this year, and the frost on the fruits hasn't been wiped off yet. I'll go back and get some for you to try. My family's honey pomelo this year is also very sweet and juicy. It's best for girls to eat. I'll go home and get some too." "Hello, Sister Meng." These ordinary people in Cool Breeze Town had no interaction with Senior Lu Qingran. In order to practice her medical skills, Meng Qi often came here to treat people's illnesses. As long as the root cause of the illness of ordinary people was found, it was not troublesome to treat it. For medical cultivators with higher medical skills, it did not have much meaning. However, people who ate the 5 grains would get sick. Although Cool Breeze Town was only a small town, there were also many kinds of people, and everyone's illnesses were different. While Meng Qi was treating them, she also had a lot of insights. She thought of Elder Yan. He was clearly a 4th-grade medical expert, but he could still treat ordinary people. He even made a great wish to travel all over the 3,000 worlds and treat all of them. Among medical cultivators, there were many people who were obsessed with medical skills. Meng Qi had seen more in the past. She greeted the residents of Cool Breeze Town as she walked towards the Cloud Immortal Pavilion in the center of the town. When she reached there, Meng Qi's bracelet storage bag was already filled with many fresh fruits. The Cloud Immortal Pavilion claimed to have branches in all the towns in the 3,000 worlds, regardless of size. Similar to the Heavens Beyond Heaven, if you wanted to buy something that was not available here, after making a reservation, they would quickly send it to the branch in your city. As long as you came to get it at the appointed time, it would be fine. Meng Qi had never seriously considered making money before. The pills she refined were mainly practical. Now, to treat little Qi's injuries, just the external injuries alone required too many spirit stones. She thought about it, and bought more than 10 kinds of 1st-grade and 2nd-grade medicinal materials at the Cloud Immortal Pavilion in one go. Then, Meng Qi went to the courier station and sent them the Cool Breeze pills with Xue Jinwen and Xiang Lin Mo's spiritual sense imprint. This was the first time she had been to the courier station of the Heavens Beyond Heaven. From the outside, it looked no different from an ordinary courier station. However, after the staff inside checked the spiritual sense imprint and took away the wooden box containing the pills, he quickly gave the spirit stones to Meng-Chi. "Excuse me, how long does it usually take for this thing to be delivered to the other party?" Meng-Chi asked. "The heavens beyond heaven has its own teleportation array. It only takes 9 days to send it from here to the southern border city, at the furthest southern border." The staff of the heavens beyond heaven said politely. They did not need to check the items inside. As long as the spiritual sense imprint was correct, they would pay the spirit stones. "Thank you." Meng-Chi nodded to the other party. After doing these things, she returned to the cool breeze valley. Little Chi was still lying lazily on the bed, and Chu Tianfeng had long disappeared. Meng-Chi stroked Little Chi again. Cultivators did not need to sleep every day, but she was still in the Chi refinement stage, so she still had to sleep for 4 hours every day. "Little Chi." Meng-Chi pushed Little White Tiger. "Sleep a little inside." It had been lying on her bamboo bed for so long that it almost took it for granted and treated it as its own territory. At this time, its blue eyes widened as it watched Meng-Chi take off her green robe, throw it on a chair, and then sleep for 4 hours, then get up to refine medicine. Now that she had 47 6th-grade spirit stones, she could buy jackdaw grass. Then she would sell the refined medicine. Next, in a daze, Meng-Chi closed her eyes and fell into a deep sleep. The fluffy little white tiger was lying stiffly on the inner half of the bed that was leaning against the wall. Meng-Chi's bamboo bed was very narrow to begin with, and she usually slept on her own. Although Little White Tiger was still very small, it was not very big when it lay down. However, it would still inevitably touch Meng-Chi. He froze for a long while. Seeing that Meng-Chi's breathing had become long, he finally regained his senses and slowly moved inwards. Soft white fur brushed against Meng-Chi's arm. Her loose white inner garment had already been lifted, revealing her fair and slender arm. Little White Tiger lowered its head and followed the other party's arm down. Then, its blue eyes looked at Meng-Chi's slender fingers. It shrank inwards again, as if it wanted to press its entire body against the wall. Soft fur brushed against Meng-Chi's arm again. "Stop fooling around," she mumbled. Then, she stretched out her arm and scooped Little White Tiger into her arms. "Be good and sleep, Little White Tiger." A faint medicinal fragrance enveloped him from all directions. It was very comfortable. Little White Tiger, who had always hated other people invading its territory, could not develop any thoughts of repulsion. The wound on its claws was still bleeding slowly. Although it was very little, when it accumulated, it still dyed Meng-Chi's pure white inner garment sleeves red. That spot of red slowly turned from bright red to dark red. The faint smell of blood was suppressed by the medicinal fragrance on the other party's body. Little White Tiger froze for a while and gradually relaxed. It had never slept on the same bed with someone like this before. No one had ever dared to hug it to sleep in such a domineering manner. However, perhaps because it was too injured, its eyelids slowly became heavy. Amidst Meng-Chi's long breaths, Little White Tiger also slowly closed its eyes. A human and a tiger. As if it was a matter of course, but also as if they had known each other for a long time and were extremely familiar with each other. They snuggled together like this. It was a dreamless night, and they slept well until dawn. Chapter 17. When Meng-Chi woke up, she felt warm all over. She opened her eyes in a daze and saw Little Chi sleeping obediently by her side. The furry little head was just within reach of her hand. One of its little paws was gently placed on her arm. He looked as if he was hugging her arm to seek comfort. "Little cutie." Meng-Chi couldn't help but rub Little White Tiger's head. Its semicircular ears shook slightly, but it didn't open its eyes. Its other paw was still bleeding slightly. After being treated by Meng-Chi yesterday, the bleeding was less and slower. After a night, there was still a large dark red bloodstain on her sleeve. Meng-Chi sighed softly. This was probably the most painful moment for medical practitioners. When they saw the person they wanted to save, but couldn't immediately get better. The sleepiness in her eyes was swept away, and she instantly became energetic. Meng-Chi reached out and gently held Little Chi's paw, then slowly moved to the bed. The little guy was so badly injured and frightened. It must be very tired. She got off the bed lightly and gently rubbed little Qi's furry little head. Don't worry, Meng Qi said softly. She would definitely cure it. She casually made a small hand seal and summoned a small stream of mountain spring water to wash up. Meng Qi was still in the Qi refinement stage and still had to eat. After a simple breakfast, she took out all the herbs she bought yesterday and placed them on the table. To most of the Cool Breeze Valley disciples, more than 46 grade spirit stones were already a fortune that they couldn't accumulate for many years. But a stalk of jackdaw grass cost 18 sixth grade spirit stones. If she wanted to cure little Qi, she might not even hear the sound of water if she threw in such a small amount of spirit stones. She had to think of a way to earn more money. The herbs Meng Qi bought yesterday were all used to refine the second grade Dark North pill. This pill was also a type of pill that could recover spirit energy. The lowest grade first grade Dark North Dan could allow a Qi Lianqi Xiuzha to recover a quarter of their Ling energy in the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn. A second grade Dark North Dan could allow a Zhuji Xiuzha to recover 1/4 of their Ling energy in 15 minutes. Third grade it could be used by Jin Dan. At 9th grade, even Mahayana Xiuzha could use it. Simply put, the higher the grade of the Dark North Dan, the more useful it was for the Xiuzha with higher cultivation. Because the Dark North pill was only a second grade pill, many medical cultivators could refine it. In addition, the medicinal materials used were not exotic flowers or herbs, so the price was considered cheap. Therefore, in the trichiliocosm, this was one of the most common and commonly used pills to recover spiritual energy. Meng Qi took out his small bronze cauldron. She placed the small cauldron on the table and drew a talisman array around it. In addition to the fire talisman array he used to refine medicine, Meng Qi also drew 2 different talisman arrays around the small cauldron. Small book pavilion. The 3 glyph formations formed a triangular cauldron with the small bronze cauldron in the center. She took out 3 pieces of 3rd grade Ling stones from her storage bag and placed them in the center of the 3 talisman arrays. Then she started to process the medicinal materials simply and threw them all into the small cauldron. Only by looking at the pills that had been successfully refined, unless one was really a genius, it would be difficult to guess how Meng Qi had attached the incantation to these pills. The most important things were these 3 talisman arrays. The fire talisman array could cause the temperature of the flame to be high enough to refine the medicinal materials. The other 2 talisman arrays, one could cause the Dan to be able to hold spells. The other could seal spells into the Dan. The 3 talisman arrays combined was the key to being able to attach spells to the Dan. This was why Meng Qi and her master had spent the better part of a year trying countless methods, talisman arrays, medicinal materials. In the end, they finally found a method. As she thought back, she silently paid attention to the Dan in the small cauldron. The medicinal energy started to spread. Meng Qi casually formed a Dark North spell and sealed it into the Dan that was about to be refined. It was a pity that her cultivation was still too low. Otherwise, she could have made a higher grade Dark North Dan. But now, the small bronze cauldron trembled slightly. 3 Dan that were as blue as the sea lay quietly inside. Meng Qi took it out and looked at it. The second grade Dark North Dan was sealed with the Dark North spell. Originally, it would take 15 minutes for a foundational cultivator to recover a quarter of their spirit energy. But now it could instantly recover a quarter of spirit energy. In the next 15 minutes, it could continue to recover an additional quarter of spirit energy. Even though it was only second grade, Meng Qi believed that there would be sects willing to buy it. The 3,000 worlds had never been a peaceful world, except for the Mo realm that was eyeing the barrier covetously and would occasionally invade. It was said that the Yao realm had also been restless in the past 100 years. And where there were people, internal strife was always the eternal theme. The 3,000 worlds were divided into 4 great worlds. The 4 great worlds, east, west, south, and north, were never absolutely peaceful. Conflicts between large sects also occurred occasionally. Large sects would annex small sects. And there were also conflicts between small sections. Even a small sect like Cool Breeze Valley, which was so small that it was almost ignored, would have other small sects come to provoke them and try to annex them. Therefore, elixirs like the Dark North Dan had always been very popular. The Cloud Immortal Pavilion sold them all year round. Cultivators often had dozens of them with them. Mengqi also prepared them. As she put the 3 Dark North Dan into a porcelain bottle, she continued to process the herbs and throw them into the small cauldron. Making elixirs also consumed a lot of spirit energy. Mengqi's cultivation was really too low. After making 10 or so pills, she had to stop and rest for a while. She was too focused on making elixirs, and didn't notice that when she took out the small bronze cauldron, little Qi had already opened its eyes. The little white tiger had been lying on the bed without moving, just looking at Mengqi with its blue eyes. When it saw the talisman formation drawn on the table, a faint light flashed across little Qi's eyes. There might be similar talisman formations in the 3,000 worlds that could be replaced. But the way this talisman formation was drawn was clearly unique to the Yao realm. The human, Yao, and Emo realms recognized that the best weapon refiner came from the Yao realm. Many of the artifacts and talismans in the 3,000 worlds were made by ancient Yao Xiao. Because of this, the Yao realm had the most complete and exquisite talisman formation inheritance. Little Qi's eyes narrowed slightly, and its gaze flashed. His attention quickly turned from the table to Mengqi's slender figure. The young girl wearing a green robe was definitely in the stage of Qi Lianqi, the lowest level of the cultivators in the 3,000 worlds. But when she made her move, that beautiful talisman formation, that exquisite mind for making elixirs, even he was slightly amazed. Soon the last few Dark North Dan were made. Mengqi put them all away with satisfaction. She threw the almost full porcelain bottle into her bracelet storage bag, and then turned to look at little Qi. "You're awake." She probably knew that the other was a royal among the Sky Yao. Mengqi had always treated the little white tiger as an equal when she talked to it. Little Qi widened his eyes and looked at Mengqi's small and exquisite chin. He had woken up once at night and was held in Mengqi's bossy arms. It was very warm. At that time, he clearly wanted to break free of the other's arms, but the warm and faint medicinal fragrance seemed to have a soothing effect. Little white tiger quickly fell asleep again. His blue eyes finally met Mengqi's bright and clear eyes. "Do you want to eat something?" Mengqi asked. She walked back to the bed and looked at the other party's fluffy little head. She wanted to touch it. Just a touch. She raised her hand and couldn't help but rub little Qi's head a few times. Cough cough. Mengqi said, "I didn't have time to ask yesterday. Do you want to eat something?" "Of course not." Little white tiger wanted to complain. He was a royal of the Sky Yao, and his cultivation was close to perfected golden core from birth. Moreover, he was already. Her slightly cold and slender fingers were no longer satisfied with the other party's fluffy little head. Mengqi pinched little Qi's ear gently. Little white tiger's originally stiff body suddenly trembled slightly. Before he could react, Mengqi's hand had already slid down his back, and she finally grabbed his tail and stroked it twice. "Little Qi." "Mengqi, oh so soft. So nice." As she thought about it, she pinched little Qi's ear again. Mengqi took out a few oranges and pomelos from her storage bag. These were all given to her by the residents of Fresh Breeze Town yesterday. Little Qi glanced at them and turned his head away in disdain. "You're not eating?" Mengqi asked patiently. "Then do you want to eat chicken?" "Little Qi." He continued to turn his head away and didn't look at Mengqi. Then, Mengqi thought for a moment. "You don't need to eat?" As she spoke, she lowered her head and looked at little Qi closer. Her elegant face moved closer to little Qi. It was as if he could touch Mengqi's face if he moved. Or rather, the other party's soft lips that also carried a faint medicinal fragrance. Chapter 18. Mengqi's eyelashes were very long. As they got closer, the little white tiger could clearly see its own furry shadow in the other party's eyes. He even felt that his own breath could stir the other party's eyelashes. "It seems." Mengqi's eyes were focused as she murmured, "The other injuries in the body don't seem to have worsened." She breathed a sigh of relief, stood up straight again, and rubbed little Qi's head twice. It was so nice to touch. Meng-Chi couldn't help but rub her fingers gently. She looked at little Seven. The little white tiger was still lying on the bed in a daze, looking dazed. She thought of the scene she saw on the light screen Chu Tianfeng gave her. If the white-robed man who looked like her master was really perfected Lord White Tiger, then they were really cute when they were young. After curing little Chi he left. Should she really raise a white tiger as a spirit beast? Meng-Chi thought seriously. Okay. She rubbed little white tiger's head again, then took out a new ball of ointment and applied it to the wound on little Chi's paw. Wuxia. Calm, she waited for the wound to completely absorb the ointment. In the end, the green ointment became almost transparent. Then she put little white tiger's paw back on the bamboo bed. Although it can't completely stop the bleeding, it's still a little useful. Meng-Chi gently rubbed little Chi's furry wrist. I'm going to exchange for jackdaw grass today. If I have the chance, I'll also buy some medicinal materials that can be used. As she spoke, she bent down slightly and looked into little white tiger's blue eyes. Little white tiger had already put away the Big Dipper shadow in its eyes. It looked similar to the cubs of ordinary white tigers. It was just that its eyes were slightly lighter. Have a good rest. After Meng-Chi finished speaking, she took out some medicinal powder and drew a few simple talisman arrays in the room. After she was done, she held the jade slip of the outer sky again and entered it. It was the second time that Meng-Chi came to this mysterious and grand place, so she was much more familiar with it. She went straight to the shop of the Magical Herb Pavilion. Seeing her, the disciple of the Magical Herb Pavilion greeted her warmly. Do you need jackdaw grass? Yes. Meng-Chi took out his nameplate. I want one. All right. The disciple of the Magical Herb Pavilion nodded. He took out another box and put a stalk of jackdaw grass in it. Then he asked Meng-Chi to imprint her spiritual awareness on it. When can I get it? Meng-Chi asked. She silently watched him do all this. She had already sold the items yesterday, and today she was here to buy them herself. She still found it a little novel. It should be around 2 to 3 days. The disciple said. Someone from the Pavilion of Magical Herbs will deliver the jackdaw grass to the post house in the human realm upon heavens. You'll be notified by the post house when the time comes. Just go and get it. Thank you. Meng-Chi estimated that the divine sense imprint he left behind could also be used to transmit messages. The people at Heaven's Beyond Relay Station probably relied on this method to contact buyers. After settling this matter, she went to look for the manager of Beyond Sky, who had brought her to see Xiang Limo yesterday. Fellow Taoist. That person obviously remembered her. When he saw Meng-Chi, he immediately greeted her with a smile. What's the matter today? Another medicinal pill. Meng-Chi smiled at him. All right. The person didn't even ask, and led her to the teleportation array. Third young lady Xue has spoken. If fellow Taoist comes again in the future, you can take her directly to see her if you need anything. Xue Jinwen. Third young lady Xue specially sent a message to all the managers yesterday. The next time fellow Taoist comes to the human realm upon heavens, you can find anyone to take you to see her. All right. The person stopped talking. They arrived at the teleportation array soon. Meng-Chi only felt a flash in front of her eyes, and then she appeared in a similar courtyard that she had been to yesterday. However, this should be where Xue Jinwen lived. The courtyard alone was much larger. Flowers, trees, and plants. As soon as Meng-Chi stepped in, the first thing she smelled was the fragrance of bamboo leaves. She turned her head to the left, where a small patch of green bamboo was planted. Stone tables and stone stools were placed under the bamboo leaves, looking very elegant. The house was also larger than Xiang Lima's residence. Seeing Meng-Chi look around curiously, the manager who led her to the human realm upon heavens hurriedly explained. The houses and courtyards here all belong to the human realm upon heavens. It's just that the higher the level of the appraiser, the better the house you can choose. He smiled. When you reach the heaven-class auction house, the residence will be as beautiful as a garden. Yes. Meng-Chi nodded. Is this a rule set by the master of the human realm upon heavens? Yes. The person said. Master once said that the more capable you are, the more you should get. Yes. Meng-Chi nodded. That's why many cultivators from the 3,000 worlds and the 4 great realms are willing to come here. Yes. Mengqi nodded again. She was actually more curious. Did the people who worked here use jade slips like her to enter? Or did they know where the human realm upon heavens was originally located? However, she didn't continue to ask. She just watched as the manager went forward and knocked on Xue Jinwen's door. Please come in. A pleasant female voice, with a hint of laziness, came from the other side of the door. The manager opened the door and said with a smile, "Third young lady Xue, the fellow Taoist from yesterday is here again." Oh. The voice that sounded lazy just now suddenly became energetic. Before Mengqi could react, Xue Jinwen, who was wearing a red robe, had already appeared in front of Mengqi. "Elder sister, you're finally here. Yesterday's first-grade clear breeze pill." Tsk. Xue Jinwen sighed as she looked up and down at Mengqi. Her long raven hair was tied up in a lazy bun and hung slanted over her shoulders. Her originally charming and exquisite eyes contained a faint smile. "Your thoughts are really exquisite." Mengqi smiled slightly. She wasn't surprised that Xue Jinwen had already obtained the first-grade clear breeze pill. If it were her, she couldn't wait to see the true appearance of such a pill. If she really was a disciple of the large medical cultivation sect in the Western land, there were many ways to get the pill as quickly as possible. Moreover, she was still working for the human realm upon heavens at the Xian auction house. She definitely had other ways. "You're here again today. Is there something else? I heard from that guy Lin Mo that you want jackdaw grass. There are more of this stuff in the northern land. There are several medical cultivation sects in the northern land, in the heavens upon heavens. You should be able to buy it." "I've already bought it," Mengqi said. "I saw records of jackdaw grass in a book and wanted to find it to study." Xue Jinwen's smile didn't fade. "Then you're here again today for—" Mengqi wiped her slender hand and took out a porcelain bottle from her bracelet storage bag. It contained the Dark North pill that she had just refined today. Xue Jinwen reached out and took it. Dark North pill? She was a little surprised. A second-grade Dark North pill. Xue Jinwen didn't mind that the pill's level was low. Dark North pill was a medicine that could be used from the Qi refinement stage to the Mahayana stage. Many medical cultivators knew how to refine it. But generally, everyone would refine the Dark North pill according to their own grade. After all, the efficacy of this thing was related to its level. Second-grade Dark North pill could be used by those in the foundation establishment stage. Xue Jinwen couldn't remember how long it had been since she had come into contact with such a low-level pill. Those who could enter the human realm upon heavens wouldn't have a low cultivation level. She looked at the blue pill in her palm, that was half like seawater, and then looked at Mengqi. This girl yesterday, she had a first-grade breeze pill. And today, she had a second-grade Dark North pill. It was as if she was a Qi refinement or foundation establishment cultivator. Xue Jinwen was amused by herself. How could someone who could enter the human realm upon heavens be a Qi refinement cultivator? It was rare to see a golden core cultivator. This Dark North pill. She probed a little, and immediately found that this Dark North pill was different. Hiss! Xue Jinwen sucked in a breath of cold air, and looked up at Mengqi in disbelief. It sealed the Dark North technique? Yes. Mengqi nodded. What's the effect? Xue Jinwen asked again. In fact, she had already vaguely guessed it, but she still heard Mengqi say, it can instantly restore a quarter of the spiritual energy of a cultivator of the same level. It can also slowly restore the other quarter in the time it takes to burn a stick of incense. Tisk! Xue Jinwen raised the Dark North pill high. She faced the sun and looked at the blue pill in her hand. The breeze pill seals the breeze technique, but it's exquisite. It's not very useful unless it's a 5th grade or 6th grade pill. However, the Dark North pill seals the Dark North technique and can instantly restore spiritual energy. Tsk. Xue Jinwen sighed softly. Medical cultivator sects will definitely rush to buy it and study it when they return. I'm afraid those large sects will also need it. Moreover, they will be willing to pay a high price and buy it in large quantities. If you can refine Dark North pills like the 3rd grade to the 5th grade, sister. She narrowed her eyes slightly and turned her head to look at Mengqi. The corners of her eyes rose slightly, and she looked even more charming. If you were short of spirit stones in the past, you definitely won't be in the future. Let's go. Xue Jinwen returned the porcelain bottle to Meng Qi. It should be auctioned this time. Thank you, sister. Meng Qi smiled sweetly at her. But now, I can only refine second-grade Dark North pills like this at most. Chapter 19. Second grade. Xue Jinwen held the porcelain bottle, her gaze sliding across Meng Qi's face. Xue Jinwen came from an extraordinary background and was knowledgeable. She understood the value of these pills very well. There was no need to talk about her ingenuity. Pills were made from medicinal materials. During this process, the essence would be extracted and mixed with many kinds of medicinal materials. It was not a simple matter to attach the incantation to it. She saw that Meng Qi's face was so tender that water could be pinched out. There was still some childishness on his face. She also guessed that the other came from some hidden medical cultivation sect, which was why he had such outstanding medicine-making skills at such a young age. However, it was impossible for a genius disciple from such a hidden sect to only be able to refine second-grade pills. Xue Jinwen did not know what to say for a moment. If it's only second grade, she thought for a moment and muttered, then I'm afraid many sects will not be interested. After all, second-grade Dan pills were mostly used by Zhuji and were of little value to Jin Dan. You know, Xue Jinwen looked at Meng Qi. The gap between Lianqi and Zhuji may not be far, but core formation is a watershed. The gap between Zhuji and Lianqi has already been pulled apart. The higher you go, the greater the gap between each major realm of cultivation. At the spirit-severing stage, the increase of a small realm is a whole new world. Meng Qi nodded. Simply speaking, in the 3,000 worlds, a Zhuji Xiuzha may only be able to fight 5 Lianqi Xiuzha, but a Jindan Xiuzha could easily deal with 10 Zhuji Xiuzha. At the spirit-severing stage, a first-level spirit-severing stage Xiuzha could easily deal with 30 to 40 Yuanying Xiuzha. At the Great Ascension stage, it was truly a step of heaven and earth. The increase of a small realm was also very terrifying. Meng Qi's talent in cultivation was far inferior to her medical skills. Her progress was mediocre. In her last life, she was only a Jindan Xiuzha before she died. That was because there were people who were worried that her cultivation would drag down her medical skills, so they did everything they could to help her reach core formation. Meng Qi knew that the second-grade Dark North pill was not very valuable. However, medical cultivation sects would be very interested. Large sects, such as the Burning Sky Palace, would have specialized medicine branches. It was impossible for him to let go of such a novel pill. Therefore, Meng Qi was sure that they could film it. This was the Dark North pill, which was different from the Clear Wind pill. This was a household necessity, and it was also one of the most commonly used and expended pills in fights between sections. But I still want to try, Meng Qi said. All right. Xue Jinwen stared at her calm and confident face for a moment and smiled sweetly. Although it will be a little troublesome if you want to go to the auction house. But I'll think of something. Xue Jinwen genuinely admired Meng Qi. It was probably because when a senior saw an ambitious and talented junior, he would spontaneously want to help the other party. Otherwise, she would not have promised that Meng Qi could go to the West Kingdom to look for her. Thank you, elder sister. Meng Qi bowed. She took the porcelain bottle and poured out 3 Dark North pills from it. This is for elder sister as a thank you gift. You can imprint it with your divine sense, and I will send it to the courier station later. You have a sweet mouth. Xue Jinwen could not help but smile sweetly again. She did not stand on ceremony with Meng Qi. Sometimes reciprocity was also part of establishing a friendship. Thank you. Xue Jinwen left her imprint on the 3 Dark North pills. Tomorrow, there will be an auction at the Xian auction house. Okay. Meng Qi nodded. Then I'll come back tomorrow. All right. Xue Jinwen suddenly remembered. She reached out to Meng Qi. Give me your nameplate. Xue Jinwen took Meng Qi's nameplate. Little Qi. She knew that this was not his real name, but she still smiled. It's a very cute name. Meng Qi also smiled. His real name was even cuter. This nameplate has other uses, Xue Jinwen said, and took out her nameplate. She left her divine sense imprint on Meng Qi's nameplate. She also asked him to leave a touch on his nameplate. This way, if you have any problems next time, you can look for me directly, Xue Jinwen explained. You can use spiritual energy to communicate with me from 1,000 miles away. Okay. Meng Qi nodded. She took her black nameplate, which looked like an ordinary bamboo slip, and looked at it repeatedly. Every time Meng Qi came to the sky beyond heaven, she felt more and more admiration for the owner of this place. The other party had many wonderful ideas, which were really amazing. Meng Qi could not help but think of her master. Her master was also a genius who constantly thought of wonderful ideas. Then I'll take my leave first. Meng Qi bowed to Xue Jinwen again. She followed the manager of the Sky Beyond Heaven city and walked toward the teleportation array. The second time she came, she already knew that she was on the floating island where the Xian auction house was located. Therefore, the surrounding white clouds seemed to be leisurely, and the sky seemed to be closer. Meng Qi could not help but look up at a higher place. The earth, the sky, and then the Sky Beyond Heaven building, which was said to have all kinds of delicious food from the trichiliocosm. Further up, there seemed to be a white cloud on the horizon. The peerless and independent floating island was probably the residence of the owner of this place. Fellow Taoist. Meng Qi retracted her gaze and smiled at the person. Sorry, I was a little distracted. It's normal. The person was quite proud. Many new cultivators are also very surprised when they see the Sky Beyond Heaven city and the floating island for the first time. He paused and said, however, there are very few people like you who can get the favor of fellow Taoist Xue and be invited to the auction when you just entered the Sky Beyond Heaven. He had always been very polite to Meng Qi, but today he was especially patient. Meng Qi smiled at him. Fellow Taoist, if you have the chance in the future, you can go to the Sky Beyond Heaven building once. The person led Meng Qi to the teleportation formation and introduced, there are all the delicious food that can be seen and eaten in the trichiliocosm. There are also many delicacies that can't be eaten or seen in the trichiliocosm. Okay. Meng Qi nodded. If there was anything in this world, she did not want to let down even after her rebirth. Delicious food was definitely one of them. Above the Sky Beyond Heaven building, Meng Qi looked up at the leisurely independent floating island in the sky. Is it the residence of the Sky Beyond Heaven's master? Yes and no. The person smiled mysteriously. In fact, many people have asked this question before. But to be honest, we don't know either. No one has ever been there. And no one has ever seen the real master of the Sky Beyond Heaven. I see. Meng Qi was not surprised. There were countless cultivators in the trichiliocosm, and many people knew about the Sky Beyond Heaven. If someone had seen the master of this place, there would always be a few words about it. Meng Qi had been to many places in the past, and she had a knowledgeable master. Even so, she had never heard him mention the Sky Beyond Heaven. Meng Qi quickly returned to her room. The little white tiger was still lying beside her. Its injured front paws were stretched out obediently, and it was sleeping lazily with its eyes closed. Meng Qi opened her eyes, and he also looked up alertly. Little Qi. Meng Qi happily rubbed his head and pinched his ears. Why didn't she think of raising a fluffy spirit beast before? It was really super cute. It was addictive to touch. I'll be able to get the jackdaw grass soon. Meng Qi jumped off the bed and walked towards the door. I'm going to the library. Stay in the room obediently. Elder Yin wasn't in the library. Without his permission, disciples were not allowed to go to the 4th floor to get books. Meng Qi asked the disciple guarding the library with some disappointment. Senior brother, where did Elder Yin go? Did he say when he would be back? Junior sister Meng doesn't know? That day in the main hall, the nascent soul elder from the Burning Sky Palace had invited Meng Qi to their sect. Almost every disciple of the Cool Breeze Valley had seen it. After this incident, everyone in the Cool Breeze Valley had a new understanding of this junior sister. This Cool Breeze Valley disciple who was in charge of guarding the library and assisting Elder Yin hurriedly said politely to Meng Qi, all the elders in the sect have followed the sect master and the young palace master of the Burning Sky Palace. Elder Sun has gone to destroy the demons, Xiaoshiding. Or destroy the demons? Meng Qi was stunned. That's right. The disciple nodded. Elder Sun Yin of the Burning Sky Palace led the team. Before he left, he said that he would be back in 10 days or half a month. Yes. Meng Qi nodded. She remembered this incident. Although she was still locked up in the dungeon when this incident happened in her previous life. Later, after she was released, someone told her what happened during this period of time. At that time, it was also because the reinforcements of the Burning Sky Palace arrived in time that the entire Cool Breeze Valley and even the ordinary residents of Cool Breeze Town were spared. After this incident, the Cool Breeze Valley merged into the Burning Sky Palace and became a small branch of the Burning Sky Palace. Of course, because of Lu Qingran, the people of the Burning Sky Palace were still polite to them. They even gave the Cool Breeze Valley a place not far from the main peak of the Burning Sky Palace, which had far more spirit qi than the current Green Peak. In this life, Chu Tianfeng recovered even faster, and Elder Sun Yin personally led the team. It was expected that things would go even smoother. Meng Qi was relieved. Thank you, senior brother. She bowed to the disciple. I'll take my leave first. Elder Yin wasn't here, so Meng Qi couldn't read the books on the 4th floor. She had already memorized the books on the 3rd floor. She simply went down the mountain to Cool Breeze Town and gave the 3 Dark North pills that she had promised to Xue Jinwen to the relay station. After finishing this, Meng Qi returned to her room. Little Qi was still lying lazily on the bamboo bed. When he heard Meng Qi push the door open and enter, he raised his head and glanced at her. She didn't know if it was because of his injury, but little Qi always looked lazy. Meng Qi checked the wound on his front paw. Blood was still slowly oozing out. The wound flickered with a silver light, and it looked very strange. Meng Qi gently pinched little Qi's furry paw with some heartache. Let's rest early today. As she said this, she laid down on the bed again. Little Qi. He didn't have time to shrink back to the wall. Meng Qi, who was familiar with him, had already grabbed him and imprisoned him by her side. There's an auction in Beyond Heaven tomorrow. I have to wake up early. Don't mess around. The girl's soft hair scattered on the bamboo bed, slowly mixing with little white tiger's soft white fur. Her breathing gradually became even, and her body still smelled faintly of medicine. Little white tiger's body stiffened for a moment. Soon he slowly relaxed. Meng Qi was very careful. Even when she hugged him, she carefully avoided touching his wound. But little white tiger slowly stretched out his paw and placed it on Meng Qi's slender wrist. He was just a cultivator who hadn't even reached the foundation establishment stage. A gentle blow could turn him into ashes. He wasn't afraid of her at all. It was just that his injury was really too serious, and he was too lazy to struggle. Little white tiger slowly closed his eyes, and his breathing gradually became long and deep. The next day, Meng Qi woke up very early. At the appointed time with Xue Jinwen, she punctually appeared at the Xian floating island in Beyond Heaven, outside the other party's courtyard. Let's go. The auction was in the morning, and it officially started at 9 o'clock. Xue Jinwen led Meng Qi to the Xian auction hall in the center of the floating island, and quickly said, "The rules of the Beyond Heaven auction hall are the same for Heaven, Earth and Xian. The lower the grade of the item, the earlier it will be auctioned." She said, "The final item usually appears at the end. There hasn't been an auction here for a long time. Second-grade elixirs." Xue Jinwen couldn't help but laugh. "So your North Dark Elixir will be the first item to be auctioned today." Meng Qi nodded. "Thank you, sister. We're here." Xue Jinwen stopped in her tracks. "This is the Xian auction hall in Beyond Heaven. Countless treasures, weapons and cultivation techniques in the trichiliocosm come in and out from here." Meng Qi heard this and looked forward. An inconspicuous courtyard was right in front of them. Just from the outside, it didn't look as big as the place where Xue Jinwen lived. However, the house was simple and unadorned. It was surrounded by clouds and mist, and it really felt like an immortal, probably because there was an auction today. Not long after Meng Qi and the others arrived, there was a steady stream of cultivators walking toward the courtyard. The place didn't look big, but no matter how many people went in, it didn't seem to be full. Meng Qi casually glanced at those cultivators. Xue Jinwen explained. In order to protect the buyers participating in the auction, each person has their own place. As she spoke, she walked forward. Come with me. Meng Qi was startled and was about to follow her. A man in a white robe suddenly brushed past her. That person was very tall, dressed in a white robe, and was very fast. Meng Qi didn't see him take a step, and the other party's figure brushed past her in an instant. She could only see the other party's tall and straight back. His black hair was tied up by a small white jade crown on his head. As his long sleeves fluttered, he looked like an immortal. As if feeling Meng Qi's gaze, the white-robed man suddenly turned his head slightly to look at her, revealing his delicate chin. Even if it was just a hurried side profile, in the trichiliocosm where there were countless beauties, it was enough to be called elegant and noble. It was unknown how many people would fall for him. Meng Qi suddenly widened her eyes. This was Chapter 20. Meng Qi only felt the man's cold gaze sweep across her face. Ha! The man seemed to chuckle. His laughter was the same as his gaze, proud and cold, like the white snow on a high mountain, without any warmth, only looking down on the world. Before she could react, the white-robed man quickly turned his head. He took another step, and stepped into the courtyard that was still some distance away. His figure completely disappeared, disappearing without a trace. Little Qi. Xue Jinwen waved at her. Why are you in a daze? Meng Qi suddenly came back to her senses. White robe, black hair, a handsome side profile, and a small white jade crown that tied up his hair. If she wasn't mistaken, that person wasn't. Dazed? Xue Jinwen chuckled, seemingly not surprised at all. That was Su Junmo just now. Many female cultivators who see him for the first time have the same expression. Su Junmo? Meng Qi walked to Xue Jinwen's side and softly repeated these words. She wasn't surprised by the man's appearance, but she didn't expect to see Su Junmo in the heavens beyond heaven. He's quite famous in the heavens beyond heaven, Xue Jinwen said as she continued to lead Meng Qi to the courtyard. The gate of the courtyard looked no different from her residence. As soon as she stepped in, Meng Qi understood what it meant by one step leads to heaven and earth. As soon as they entered, they found themselves in a room that wasn't too big. There were only 3 walls in the room, and there was only a hollowed-out screen on the other side. Looking through the hollowed-out patterns on the screen, they could see an open high platform in front of them. The high platform should be built with a huge piece of bluestone, surrounded by green mountains. Many similar rooms could be faintly seen on the mountain walls, but it was unknown whether there was anyone inside. When Meng Qi looked up, he could only see a cloud shrouded in mist. Xue Jinwen guessed her thoughts and said, There are some invited guests with different identities above. Okay. Meng Qi nodded. Xian Auction House. There are a total of 999 rooms of different sizes on the surrounding mountain walls. She sat down on a chair in the room. We're already the smallest. The higher they went, the bigger the rooms became. Once we reach the peak of the mountain, we will be able to see the complete courtyard, Xue Jinwen said. Once the auction starts, you can directly bid using your nameplate. The auctioneer would constantly update the latest and highest prices. Throughout the auction, other than the staff here, no one would know who had bought the item. Of course, she raised the corner of her lips and tidied up a strand of hair on her temples with a faint smile. There are also people who are willing to directly bid. The cultivators who can enter here are not nameless in the 3,000 worlds. They are easily recognized. Meng Qi nodded as if he understood. She was extremely talented in medical skills, but she was relatively ignorant in other matters. She could faintly feel that what Xue Jinwen said just now was not as simple as introducing the auction rules. But she could not say where the problem was. Sit, Xue Jinwen said as she picked up the teapot on the table and poured a cup of tea for Meng Qi. The fragrance of the tea rose. She also looked up at a higher place hidden by the clouds. When the auction starts, you will understand what I mean, she said. Right. Xue Jinwen looked at Meng Qi, who sat down next to her. Your North Deep Dan will be the first item to appear. Meng Qi nodded. Xue Jinwen had just told her. It was almost 9 now. Mengqi looked at the screen in front of her. She couldn't even hear the movements in the room next to them. She didn't know how many people had arrived in this vast auction house. 2kxs. Also, that Su Junmo just now. Mengqi's eyelids drooped slightly, her long eyelashes covering the light in her eyes. She knew this person. In the past, Lu Qingran had a mysterious but powerful suitor. He was handsome and peerless. His face was naturally stunning. The other party was extremely generous. At that time, Lu Qingran was already a third-grade medical cultivator. A large number of medicinal materials needed for refining medicine were provided by that man. The other party's casual and unrestrained movements were different from the other male cultivators that Lu Qingran knew. At that time, who was she with? Mengqi's eyes wandered. Her senior sister had too many men under her skirt. She couldn't remember which male cultivator Lu Qingran was with at that time. But after this mysterious suitor appeared, Lu Qingran soon couldn't resist his powerful attack. When Mengqi went out to pick herbs on a moonlit night, she saw her senior sister and the other party walking under the moon in the wind. It was romantic and sweet. That mysterious and powerful suitor was Su Junmo. Later, by chance, Mengqi found out that he was a demon cultivator. And he was the sky demon aristocrat that demon cultivators talked about. Her original form was a pure white fox with 5 tails. She was very beautiful. Even though she was seriously injured and lying on the ground, her soft white fur was stained with blood. It didn't seem to affect the beauty of the fox at all. Mengqi tilted her head slightly, her eyes wandering. But the feeling of touching her was still not as good as little Qi's. Moreover, an adult fox was already a big fox with 5 tails. It was far less cute than little Qi. She was very beautiful, but she was a little less cute. Little Qi. Mengqi came back to her senses. She remembered that Su Junmo should appear 2 or 3 years later. At that time, she was already at the peak of the foundation establishment realm. Her medical skills were already on the verge of third-grade perfection. She didn't expect to see him so long in advance, because of heavens beyond. Mengqi narrowed her eyes. The auction is about to begin, Xue Jinwen reminded Mengqi. Okay. Mengqi nodded. She collected her thoughts and stopped thinking about Su Junmo. At the same time, on the peak of Green Mountain around the Xian auction house, surrounded by clouds and fog, a huge courtyard occupied a large part of the mountain wall. This was already the highest point of the auction house. There were only 2 courtyards in total. It was different from the room where Mengqi and Xue Jinwen were. Not only was this courtyard much more spacious, but it also had its own garden. There was even a small lake in the garden. From time to time, colorful koi fish would jump out of the water. There were many exotic flowers and herbs planted in the garden. A faint fragrance of plants and trees filled the air. Just this fragrance alone was enough to make people feel refreshed and comfortable. Su Junmo stood tall and respectfully waited outside the door. The coldness and pride that Mengqi saw just now had long disappeared from his unusually handsome face. My lord. He opened his mouth. His clear voice trembled slightly, as if he couldn't believe it. Since you left, everyone has been looking for you everywhere. The disputes in the clan have restarted. In 9 years, it will be the day of the Demon Lord's reselection. Many idiots think that this is an opportunity, and are already trying to rope in various forces. They are ready to make a move. I know. A lazy and indifferent man's voice interrupted Su Junmo. Let them fight. Footsteps sounded in the room. A man in a white robe slowly walked out. Su Junmo didn't dare to raise his head. He looked at the ground and stood respectfully beside the man. He had followed this man for a long time and could understand some of his habits. He knew that the more lazy and indifferent the man looked, the more angry he was. The clan. The auction is about to begin. The man in the white robe raised his hand and interrupted Su Junmo. Yes. Su Junmo felt a little strange, but he still kept his mouth shut. The Xian auction was only held 3 times a month. The rare treasures were limited. He didn't know why the master had come. He had also received the summons and hurried over. Otherwise, a Xian auction like this wouldn't be worth Su Junmo's time. Which auction item does the master need? Su Junmo asked respectfully. The list of auction items flashed through his mind. There didn't seem to be anything particularly outstanding. The most outstanding item was probably the first auction item. It was said to be a second-grade Dark North pill. Su Junmo was a little surprised when he saw the list of auction items. Not to mention the Xian auction house. The realm beyond heaven hadn't sold second-grade pills for many years. The man in the white robe didn't say anything. A strange light flashed through his eyes. He raised his long eyebrows. Su Junmo's question seemed to have reminded him of something. A faint smile flashed through his starry eyes. The lazy expression on his face disappeared, and the corners of his lips curled up slightly. In terms of looks, Su Junmo could be said to be incomparably handsome. He was even more handsome than the young palace master of the Burning Sky Palace. But in front of the man in the white robe, he seemed a little dull. Moreover, the other party was, the man in the white robe waved his sleeve, and the clouds in front of him slowly dispersed. A middle-aged cultivator was already standing in the center of the large bluestone platform. The auction was about to begin. Meng Qi's attention was also focused on the middle-aged cultivator on the bluestone. She looked calm, as if she didn't feel nervous at all. On the contrary, Xue Jinwen looked at the middle-aged male cultivator in charge of the auction, and then looked at Meng Qi. Little Qi. She called the name left on Meng Qi's nameplate. Are you nervous? I'm fine. Meng Qi shook his head. She looked up again. She felt strange. According to Xue Jinwen, the cultivators participating in the auction shouldn't be able to see each other if they were willing. But she felt as if someone was looking at her. Moreover, that gaze came from above, carrying a hint of playfulness and inquisitiveness. Was it an illusion? Meng Qi slowly retracted his gaze. Sister Xue. Meng Qi turned his head and asked Xue Jinwen, should fellow Taoist Su Junmo be up there? Yes. Xue Jinwen nodded. Su Junmo is very famous in heavens beyond heaven, she said. Although he's very young, he's already a cultivator at the first level of the spirit severing stage. Meng Qi nodded. She glanced at Xue Jinwen, feeling a little strange. It wasn't strange for her to know that Su Junmo was a spirit severing stage cultivator. Meng Qi had even seen Su Junmo's 5 tails. But didn't Xue Jinwen know that Su Junmo was a white fox and a demon cultivator? He once held a banquet in heavens beyond heaven. That day, a strange fragrance assailed the nostrils of everyone in heavens beyond city, and their spiritual senses were tempered. Until now, no one knows what kind of treasure was used for the main dish that day. Xue Jinwen added. Even third Miss Xue, who came from a large sect in the western land, blushed at the mention of Xue Jinwen, and her eyes shone brightly. But who would have thought that this extremely handsome heavenly demon aristocrat would have a soft spot for senior sister Lu Qingran? The daughter of the heavenly Tao, she really lived up to her reputation. There are also people who say, Xue Jinwen lowered her voice. He knows the owner of this place. Oh, Meng Qi raised his eyebrows in surprise. But these are all rumors, and no one knows the truth. Xue Jinwen smiled and tidied her hair again. There have always been many legends about the owner of this place, and we've all become numb to hearing them. As soon as she finished speaking, a clear voice sounded. The middle-aged male cultivator standing on the large bluestone high platform whistled softly. The auction begins. Chapter 21. Xue Jinwen did not speak anymore. Meng Qi and she looked at the middle-aged male cultivator together. The other party waved his hand, and a light green porcelain bottle appeared in the air. The porcelain bottle looked very simple, and did not have the slightest bit of color. Meng Qi recognized it. It was the porcelain bottle that she had bought at the Cloud Immortal Pavilion. The cheapest one cost 10 first-grade spirit stones. She pulled herself together. She had participated in auctions in the Trichiliocosm before. She did not know if it would be different in this sky beyond heaven. The middle-aged male cultivator said loudly, the first item of the Xian auction, 12 second-grade Dark North pills. As soon as the other party's voice fell, someone chuckled pfff. There was not much sarcasm in the laughter, as if it was just a subconscious instinctive reaction. Xue Jinwen glanced in the direction of the laughter, and could only tell that it was the laughter of a young woman. Meng Qi was calm and composed, as if she did not hear it. This laughter seemed to have started, and soon, someone else followed suit. The laughter was endless, although there was not much malice. However, most of the people who came to participate in the auction were not here for the first time. Obviously, they felt that the style this time was a little different. After a moment of laughter, someone said with a smile, "This porcelain bottle that contains the Dark North pills, is it from the Cloud Immortal Pavilion that costs 10 first-grade spirit stones?" The person who spoke was a young male cultivator. As soon as he finished speaking, there was more laughter than before. The Sky Beyond Heaven auction house, even the lowest level Xian auction house, never auctioned ordinary items. These people actually knew that. However, to use the cheapest porcelain bottle to contain 12 second-grade Dark North pills, these cultivators were experienced and knowledgeable, and they really could not think of anything special. If it was any other medicine, then forget it. The Dark North pill. That was a pill that could be refined by any second-grade medical cultivator in the trichiliocosm. Everyone here had taken it before, and they could not be more familiar with it. Especially some cultivators from medical cultivation sections. Even if they did not laugh out loud, they shook their heads with a smile in their rooms. Not long after medical cultivators appeared in the trichiliocosm, someone refined the Dark North pill. The prescription later spread out, and countless medical cultivators studied and improved it for thousands of years. The current Dark North pill was already an improved version, made by a certain great medical cultivator 1,000 years ago. Compared with the original Dark North pill, the speed of recovering spiritual energy was 3 times higher, and the time needed was halved. If there were any improvements that could be made to the Dark North pill, it could only be in terms of time and efficacy. In the past 1,000 years, new recipes for the Dark North pill would occasionally appear. Perhaps the efficacy of the medicine could be improved a little, but that was usually because the medicine was more precious. In this way, the cost would increase, but the increase in efficacy would be limited. It was not worth it. Most of the medical xiao did not laugh out loud like the other xiozha. Almost all of them had spent their lives studying medicine and medicine. They could vaguely guess that the Dark North pill that appeared in the dark auction house might be different. However, most of them felt that a few of the medicinal herbs should be replaced. Just like those new Dark North pill prescriptions that appeared out of nowhere. Using more precious and higher-ranked herbs, of course, he could refine a Dark North pill with better medicinal effects. But no matter what, he was still a rank 2. The elders among the medical cultivators couldn't help but smile and shake their heads. It was most likely some young medical cultivator who had done something so wasteful that the gains did not make up for the losses. There was endless laughter in the auction house. Since the dark auction house was built, there had never been such a relaxed and joyful time. After all, no one expected that the first auction item in Sky Beyond Heaven today would be a rank 2 Dark North pill like a joke. Some people even felt that this was a deliberate gimmick for the following auction items. Amidst the laughter, the middle-aged male cultivator in charge of the auction remained unmoved. He still had a faint smile on his face, and even his voice was still so calm and steady. 12 rank 2 Dark North pills. The starting price is 50 rank 6 spirit stones. Uft. Someone laughed again. 50 rank 6 spirit stones? This is nothing. At least he has some self-awareness. Meng Qi looked in the direction of the sound. Did she set the price too low? Xue Jingwen had asked her before, and suggested that she set the starting price at 30 to 60 rank, 6 spirit stones, and 12 Dark North pills. Meng Qi set 50 rank 6 spirit stones. This was not a lot. There were so many rich cultivators in the 3,000 worlds. But Cloud Immortal Pavilion bought rank 2 Dark North pills for 50 rank 6 spirit stones. Fellow Taoist, you can eat them as much as you want. You won't be able to finish them even if you eat for half a year, someone said. This person's words caused another burst of laughter. Rank 3 Dark North pills are only 20 rank 3 spirit stones each, someone else said. It makes me a little curious. What's the difference between these 12 rank 2 Dark North pills? Another person quickly said, it's cheap anyway. Let's bid for it and try it. Is it as delicious as dragon liver and phoenix marrow? 51 rank 6 spirit stones. Meng Qi. Even so, someone really bid for it. She didn't know that 50 rank 6 spirit stones were nothing to the cultivators who could come here. Although the Xian auction house was the lowest level auction house in the human realm upon heavens, the price of a 5th grade item could be calculated in the trillions of 6th grade spirit stones. For the people here, 50 rank 6 spirit stones might be worth more than a glass of spirit wine. Then, I'll bid 52 rank 6 spirit stones. You guys, I'd like to try it too. 53. 54 then. Everyone laughed and raised the price one by one. They didn't take this auction seriously at all. Meng Qi rested her chin on her hand and tapped her slender fingers on the table lightly. Xue Jinwen glanced at her and comforted her. Don't worry, martial artists will introduce the auction item. She paused and explained. This is the special feature of the dark auction house. The item will be released first, and everyone can make a bid in advance. If no more than 3 people make a bid, the item will belong to the highest bidder. Then, martial artists will introduce the auction item. She smiled sweetly. It's a bit like gambling. Or when auctioning some items that even we can't judge the price of for the time being. This method will be used. Meng Qi nodded silently. In other words, if there was a precious item that even the treasure appraisers of Sky Beyond Heaven could not recognize, if the people participating in the auction also couldn't recognize the item, they might be able to pick it up. She rested her chin on one hand and listened to everyone's laughter. In the end, the price of the Dark North pill was pushed to 76th grade spirit stones. That meant that more than 3 people had bid. Next, the middle-aged male cultivator in charge of the auction began to introduce the Dark North pill. The auction house was quiet for a moment. The middle-aged male cultivator surnamed Wu cleared his throat and was about to speak. A clear and pleasant male voice came from above. 206th grade spirit stones. Everyone was in an uproar. The voice came from above. It was obviously an honored guest invited by Sky Beyond Heaven. Could it be that there was something special about this Dark North pill? But for a moment, no one said anything. Just now the price was still raised one by one, and the price was not high. But now, the person who raised the price directly raised the price to 206th grade spirit stones. Then, the next price increase would be at least 336th grade spirit stones. In this way the price would soon be raised very high. Meng Qi looked up in surprise. Others might not be able to hear it. Even Xue Jinwen did not react. But she heard it clearly. This voice was clearly Su Junmo. She was very familiar with his voice. After all, he had been seriously injured by the enchantment and was hunted down by the demon realm. He was seriously injured. Meng Qi spent nearly a month with him day and night. In order to save his life, she used her medical skills, which had just reached the great perfection of the 3rd grade at that time, to go against the heavens and forcefully save his life. During that month, Su Junmo was sometimes unconscious and sometimes awake. When he was awake, he didn't like to talk, but when he was unconscious, he was quite talkative. Especially when he couldn't maintain his human form and revealed his 5-tailed fox form. He was even more noisy. There were several times when Meng Qi couldn't bear it and wanted to stuff this noisy fox's mouth. So later, Su Junmo recovered from his injuries and became the arrogant and cold handsome man who attracted the admiration of countless female cultivators. Every time Meng Qi saw him, she could only think of the noisy white fox. The contrast was not cute, but there was an indescribable defiance. When she saw Su Junmo's proud face in human form, she couldn't help but think of Su Junmo's noisy appearance in the white fox form. Then she couldn't help but want to avoid him. Otherwise, she really couldn't help but want to laugh. However, from Su Junmo's mouth, Meng Qi learned a lot about the demon cultivators. She knew that Su Junmo was a noble among the heavenly demons. She also knew the boundary between humans and demons. She also heard him talk about some things about the demon realm. Before that, Meng Qi's understanding of the demon realm was completely based on the alien races, separated by the enchantment and the barrier. In short, she was very familiar with Su Junmo's voice. Even though she had been reborn, she recognized it immediately. The Xian auction house quieted down again. The middle-aged male cultivator coughed lightly and said loudly, "The first auction item, these 12 Dark North pills, each sealed with a Dark North spell." 100 Alliance book. Before the middle-aged male cultivator finished speaking, the audience was in an uproar. Dark North spell? Sealed in the Dark North pill? Are you joking? The Heavens Beyond auction house never jokes. How is it sealed? What about the medicinal effect? The second-grade Dark North pill is sealed with the second-grade Dark North spell. What about the medicinal effect? How is the medicinal effect of the Dark North pill sealed with the Dark North spell? Double or shorten the time? Are you sure it's only second grade? As soon as the middle-aged male cultivator said that, the laughing and joking atmosphere just now was swept away. Those cultivators who were joking and shouting just now, wanting to buy this Dark North pill to taste it and see what was special about it, instantly became serious. Questions were asked incessantly. The middle-aged male cultivator had presided over countless auctions. He stood on the high platform with a smile and listened to the discussions of the cultivators. When the atmosphere was enthusiastic enough, he slowly opened his mouth. He had privilege. As soon as he opened his mouth, his voice overpowered the crowd and clearly reached everyone's ears. The second-grade Dark North pill sealed with the Dark North spell can instantly restore a quarter of the spiritual energy of a Foundation establishment cultivator. The audience was in an uproar again. This time, no one asked anything else. Just the words instant recovery were enough to attract people. 330 pieces of 6th-grade Ling stones. Someone instantly made a bid. 500 pieces of 6th-grade Ling stones. Someone immediately followed. 700 pieces. 1 piece of 7th-grade Ling stone. The middle-aged male cultivator smiled slightly and calmly continued. And in the next 15 minutes, it can continuously restore a quarter of the spiritual energy. Of course, this pill is a second-grade Dark North pill and is most effective for Foundation establishment cultivators. It most likely will not be as effective for Jin Dan. He didn't need to remind them. The Xiuzhi here knew this. Being able to recover half of the spiritual energy of a Foundation establishment cultivator. For a Jin Dan, it probably wouldn't even be 1/10. But so what? It wasn't that there weren't Dan that could instantly recover spiritual energy. But most of them were high-level Dan. They were hard to make, and the materials needed were even more precious. The cost was so high that even the top sects of the 3,000 worlds and the 4 great Jia were not willing to use them daily. Usually, they would only be used in times of great sect wars or in times of danger. But this was a Dark North pill. Simply put, this was a common item that could be found everywhere. Large sects would definitely be willing to prepare hundreds or thousands of pills for their direct disciples or elders to eat. 2 pieces of 7th-grade Ling stones. Someone immediately made a bid. 3 pieces. 5 pieces of 7th-grade Ling stones. Everyone had the same thoughts. While this pill was 2nd grade, they would buy it and study it to see if it could be made into 3rd grade, or even higher Dark North pills. Whichever sect could make it first would basically mean that they would have a certain advantage in the sect wars in the next few decades. Meng Qi just took a sip of tea. In a blink, the price of her 12 Dark North pills was raised to 20 pieces of 7th-grade Ling stones. Chapter 22. Meng Qi was completely surprised. As calm and composed as she was, the hand holding the teacup trembled slightly. Her original plan was to exchange 12 2nd-grade Northern Dark Dan for 6 or 700 6th-grade Ling stones. It was enough to buy the herbs she was going to use to try and cure the jackdaw grass poison. She hadn't thought that large sects were different. They were rich and spent a lot of money. This was something that a little Lianqi Xiuzhi like her could not imagine. Even Xue Jinwen was stunned for a moment. But she quickly reacted. It was just like when she had first seen the 1st-grade Clear Wind Dan. At the time, if she had to spend 26th-grade Ling stones to buy a 1st-grade Clear Wind Dan, she definitely would have been willing. For disciples of good birth like them, as long as the Ling stones were well spent, it was fine. If she could really find something, the sect might reward her greatly. Then it would not be a matter of a few Ling stones, but treasures of the world, medical books, spells, and even a chance to practice in the secret places of the sect. These people probably had similar thoughts as her. Xue Jinwen's lips rose and showed a faint smile. She couldn't help but turn to look at Meng Qi. The other's expression finally showed some surprise. Her eyes were much brighter than before. They were sparkling, and seemed to have some of the childishness of a young girl. Meng Qi was currently pondering. In the blink of an eye, the price of the Northern Dark Dan had been raised to 37th grade Ling stones. She could guarantee that she was the richest person in Clear Wind Valley, even richer than the sect leader. And this time, she should be able to buy many of the herbs she needed. So good. Meng Qi turned and met Xue Jinwen's gaze. She couldn't help but smile at this older sister. Many thanks to Xue Jiejie for helping. This is what I should do. Xue Jinwen poured another cup of tea for Meng Qi. In that moment, she rejoiced at her sudden curiosity. Lin Mo, that idiot, only knew how to be calculative over a few spirit stones, and even haggled with Meng Qi. The pills were no longer important. The beautiful girl in front of him was the real treasure. By the way, Xue Jinwen took out a scroll from her storage bag. I heard that you were looking for records related to jackdaw grass. I have a compendium of herbs from the North Realm. As she spoke, she handed the scroll in her hand to Meng Qi. It's useless for me to keep it with me. You can leave a divine sense imprint on it, and I'll send it to you from the Outland Courier Station. Thank you, Sister Xue. Meng Qi obviously wanted it, but he was a little embarrassed. Then I'll give you some more Dark North pills. No need, no need. Xue Jinwen waved her hand generously. This thing isn't worth much, and it's not very useful to me. 3 Dark North pills are enough. She looked at Meng Qi with a smile. From the looks of it, I'm afraid this Dark North pill will be sold for a high price today. It couldn't be considered a sky-high price. However, compared to a second-grade pill, the current price was definitely considered high. Moreover, Xue Jinwen couldn't figure out the girl's background. The first time, she used a first-grade clear breeze pill to shock her in Xiang Linma. The second time, she used a second-grade Dark North pill to knock open the door of the Xian auction house. She left a deep impression on the Xiozha here. Next time, she would surprise her even more. Xue Jinwen was not surprised. Thank you, sister. Meng Qi left his imprint on the bamboo scroll as he was told. She narrowed her eyes and looked at the small, warm, and even a little yellow bamboo scroll. I can't tell sister the refining method. If sister needs a first-grade or second-grade pill, I can refine some for you. Meng Qi thought about it and said. She wouldn't be as wary of Xue Jinwen as she was of Chu Tianfeng and Su Junmo. However, it was better not to owe her too much karma. So it's like this. Xue Jinwen looked at Meng Qi's clear eyes, and her heart moved slightly. This girl was always calm and indifferent. Her background must be extraordinary. First-grade or second-grade pill, she thought and asked. Is seasonal rain pill okay? All right. Meng Qi nodded. Unlike Dark North pill that recovered Ling energy, seasonal rain pill was used to stop bleeding. This was a very common kind of pill, and was also divided into 9 grades. Xue Jinwen actually had other questions she wanted to ask. Why were they all first-grade and second-grade pills? If what was being auctioned today was not second-grade Dark North pill, but 4th-grade or even 5th-grade, the entire Xian auction house would go crazy. But she also knew that this should be Meng Qi's secret. The other said that she could only make second-grade pills. She didn't know if she was being modest, or if such a special pill could only be made into second-grade pills. Xue Jinwen smiled again. Then sister will thank Mimi first. As they talked, the price in the auction house continued to rise. In 15 minutes, it went from 37th grade Ling stones to 157th grade Ling stones. At this price, there were fewer people bidding. Just as Xue Jinwen said, it was only second-grade Dark North pill. If it was 4th grade or 5th grade, it would probably be auctioned for a sky-high price. Meng Qi didn't care. Just the current price had far exceeded her expectations. In the end, 12 second-grade Dark North pills were sold for 277th grade Ling stones. The Ling stones from the auction will also be sent to you after you send these Dark North pills to the relay station, Xue Jinwen told Meng Qi. Do you want to continue looking? Go back first. I'll go first. Meng Qi nodded at her. 277th grade Ling stones was already a huge sum of money for Meng Qi, but she knew that in a place like Sky Beyond Heaven, it was really nothing. When the auction started, those people didn't know what was so special about the Dark North pill, and they could casually throw out dozens of 6th grade Ling stones to buy it back to try. Meng Qi was quite self-aware. I still want to continue looking here, Xue Jinwen said. After you go out and return to my residence, there will be a teleportation array to send you away. Okay. Meng Qi nodded. She bowed to Xue Jinwen and turned to walk out of the door. Xue Jinwen watched Meng Qi's departing figure. She was neither arrogant nor rash. She was calm and collected. Very good. She looked at Meng Qi even more highly. She really didn't know which hidden sect could cultivate such a disciple. It made her a little yearn for it. The only strange thing was, would a disciple cultivated by such a sect lack spirit stones? Xue Jinwen was a little puzzled. The more important a disciple was to be cultivated by a large sect, the less they had to worry about material things like spirit stones. They only needed to focus on cultivation and put all their energy into it. As far as she knew, some disciples of large sects in the 4 great realms would not even come to Sky Beyond Heaven before they reached the nascent soul 5th stage. The disciples who would open shops here for their sects were often those who were not so talented in cultivation, or they were willing to. Xue Jinwen reached out and tucked her hair behind her ear. Her eyes were shining. Like her. Meng Qi left the entrance courtyard of the Xian auction house and couldn't help but look back at the quaint courtyard. Such a one-person, one-world setting was not only unique, but also very special. She could guess that this should be the effect of a large talisman array, set up by countless small talisman arrays. But the specific method of doing it was completely beyond Meng Qi's ability. Her feelings these days were, the master of Sky Beyond Heaven put so much thought into every blade of grass, every tree, every house, and every tile. To maintain such a huge city, there were still 7 floating islands. It was really super powerful and super rich. Meng Qi walked very fast with Xue Jinwen on the way here. She simply slowed down and walked back the way she came. The scenery of the floating island was quite good. The blue sky seemed to be within reach, and the white clouds were on the side. Occasionally, melodious sounds of stringed and woodwind instruments came from higher places. When Meng Qi looked up, she could see the floating island higher up. She didn't walk far before someone passed by her again, their clothes fluttering in the wind. The white-robed man was tall, and his long sleeves fluttered in the wind. His ink-black hair was tied up by a small crown on his head. Just from his back, he did look like an immortal. Meng Qi glanced at the other party's back. Su Junmo again? He was leaving so early too. As soon as she saw this guy, she couldn't help but think of the noisy big white fox. That month was really the most terrifying month Meng Qi had experienced in her medical cultivation career. As long as the white fox had a little bit of strength, it would be able to chatter nonstop. When Meng Qi despised him, he could still slap her with his tail. White fur flew all over the sky, and he spat out a mouthful of fur when he opened his mouth. As long as Meng Qi was treating him, he would babble on and on. She really couldn't stand it anymore and hid further away. After all, he was a so-called heavenly demon noble, the 5-tailed great white fox. He could lie there aggrievedly, holding his claws, drooping his head, and mumbling for a long time. Meng Qi had no resistance to fluffy fur and pointed ears. Moreover, she couldn't hide too far away for too long. After all, Su Junmo's injuries hadn't healed yet. In short, during the entire month of treating Su Junmo's injuries, Meng Qi only felt that each day was like a year. She never knew that a fox could be so talkative. Later, Su Junmo recovered and could transform again. Meng Qi immediately packed up her bag and hid far away. Later, whenever she saw the cold Su Junmo, she couldn't help but think of the talkative great white fox. Su Junmo, who looked like a human, was very popular with female cultivators, but Meng Qi hid whenever she saw him. There was no fluffy fur or cute pointed ears. In her eyes, Su Junmo was only a chatterbox. If she had to listen to the fluffy white fox's muttering, she could still barely endure it. Meng Qi only felt extremely happy when she thought about such a tall and slender man mumbling to her. So later, When those people questioned her why she hid whenever she saw Su Junmo, if she didn't do anything wrong, and didn't have a guilty conscience, through the crowd, Meng-Chi looked at the tall and aloof white-robed man who was standing high up. He hesitated. She also felt very surprised. Even if Su Junmo wasn't grateful to her, he should at least remember that she was the one who cured him. Was it really okay to treat the person who saved him so coldly? Meng-Chi couldn't tell others that Su Junmo was a talkative great white fox, because he was a demon cultivator, and most human cultivators didn't like him. Moreover, Su Junmo definitely wouldn't admit it. After all, if his identity was exposed, even if he wasn't killed, he would be sent out of the Trichiliocosm and returned to his demon realm. Then he wouldn't be able to continue being with senior sister Lu Qingran, whom he liked. At that time, Meng-Chi met Su Junmo's cold gaze and looked at the indifference on his face. She even felt that maybe Su Junmo wanted to kill her to silence her, so that she could keep his secret forever. Meng-Chi retracted her gaze, and her expression became colder than before. Of course, she had already guessed that it was most likely because she saved Su Junmo and provoked senior sister Lu Qingran. That was why people suspected her, and she was in big trouble again. The white-robed man in front of her also seemed to have noticed Meng-Chi. He didn't look back, but his footsteps paused slightly. A pleasant and low voice, like the eternal morning light, came from the front. "Fellow Taoist, I'm afraid you're going in the wrong direction. The teleportation array you left is on the left side of the fork just now." It wasn't Su Junmo. This was Meng-Chi's first reaction. She was all too familiar with Su Junmo's voice. If it was anyone else, they would also be engraved in their bones and unforgettable for the rest of their life, after hearing the demonic sound for an entire month. And this voice master? Meng-Chi suddenly sped up and chased after the white-robed man in front of her. After leaving that sentence, the other party took another step, and was already very far away. So far that Meng-Chi couldn't even see his figure clearly. Was it Master? Meng-Chi was a little uncertain. It didn't have Master's laziness and casualness, and it seemed much clearer. But the timbre was really similar, very similar. And Meng-Chi suddenly remembered that in a glance just now, the other party's hair was also a small black sandalwood crown, not the white jade crown that Su Junmo always used. Whatever. She quickened her pace and hurried in the direction that the person left. The reason why Meng-Chi wanted to wait for Cool Breeze Valley to merge into Burning Sky Palace was to leave Cool Breeze Town with them. She wanted to go to the Western world, and Cool Breeze Valley was the farthest eastern edge of the Eastern world from the Western world. If she took another step back, she would enter the territory of the demon realm. Meng-Chi only met her master 2 years later in her previous life. That man with a gorgeous face, who was always lazy and carefree, said that he came from a hidden sect in the Western world. It was his first time traveling to the Eastern world, and he happened to meet Meng-Chi. In this life, Meng-Chi wanted to find him in advance. She didn't want to wait 2 years. That was why she was so persistent in going to the Western world. Besides, it wasn't that she didn't think that she might meet him in the sky beyond heaven. Thinking of this, Meng-Chi walked even faster. Whether the other party was her master or not, she had to see it with her own eyes. The white-robed man's figure quickly disappeared completely. Meng-Chi wasn't discouraged. She chased in the direction that the other party left. She hadn't gone far when she felt a weight on her shoulder. A slender hand silently rested on her shoulder. "Fellow Taoist, please stay." A cold man's voice sounded in her ear. "The place ahead is not a place you can go. YQXSW. Org." The voice of the man who spoke was very pleasant. But in Meng-Chi's ears, it was like a demon's voice. Almost subconsciously, she jumped a big step to the side. The other man in a white robe stood in the same place. His expression was cold, and his black hair was tied on top of his head by a small white jade crown. His phoenix eyes were long and narrow, and the bridge of his nose was high. From the front, Su Junmo did have the right to be arrogant. Meng-Chi was sizing him up. He was also sizing up Meng-Chi with a scrutinizing gaze. He didn't know who this girl was before, but he stood there looking at her thoughtfully. His lord, who hadn't shown up for a long time, suddenly appeared and urgently summoned him to the sky beyond heaven just to raise the price for this girl? And just now, they had clearly left the auction house together. He still had a lot to say to his lord. Just as he was about to speak, his lord suddenly quickened his pace, just to remind this girl that she was going the wrong way. Su Junmo's eyes flickered. He seemed to be casually glancing at Meng Qi, but in his heart he was crazily complaining. Her looks were okay, but she seemed a little small. Her figure was far inferior to his clan sisters. The pills she refined were only second grade, and they were only sold for a few hundred seventh-grade spirit stones. She didn't seem to be very capable. Why was his lord helping her? Was there anything special about this girl? Su Junmo's expression didn't change, and countless thoughts flashed through his mind. He could feel the vigilance coming from the girl. She was actually still guarding against him. Guarding against what? What did she think he would do to her? Thank you for the reminder. Meng Qi's eyes were still looking forward with some reluctance. But she also knew that with Su Junmo there was no way she could continue to follow. Her gaze fell on Su Junmo's white robe, and her heart suddenly skipped a beat. Medical cultivators were often more attentive than other cultivators. With a glance, Meng Qi suddenly remembered that the style of the white-robed man's outer robe seemed to be similar to Su Junmo's. But it wasn't certain. The outer robes of cultivators were similar, and she only took a quick glance just now. Fellow Taoist. Su Junmo turned and pointed in another direction. The teleportation array is in this direction. What about here? Meng Qi asked casually. Can't we return to the heavens beyond Heaven City? She asked. No, Su Junmo said lightly. Oh, Meng Qi nodded. Thank you, fellow Taoist. If they couldn't return to the heavens beyond Heaven City, then it should be to another floating island. It shouldn't be the teleportation array to leave the heavens beyond heaven, or else Su Junmo wouldn't have specially stopped her. Thank you for the reminder, fellow Taoist. Meng Qi took another step back. She turned and walked back the way she came. Although she didn't look back, Meng Qi knew that Su Junmo had been watching her leave. She narrowed her eyes and returned to her room through the teleportation array. The jade scroll was already slightly warm from her grip. Meng Qi opened her palm and looked at the mysterious little thing in her palm. Who was that person? She shook her head, pulled herself together, and threw the jade scroll back into the storage bag in her bracelet. When she turned her head, little Qi was still lying obediently beside her. His little head drooped on his paws, and he looked a little listless. Little Qi. Meng Qi reached out and lifted his chin so that his face was facing her. Why do you look like? Meng Qi looked at the other party's eyes, which had obviously become a little dim. Although little Qi had indeed slept a lot these few days, why did it feel like he had overdrawn his strength and looked very tired at this moment? Could it be that his injuries had changed? Meng Qi quickly checked the other party's injuries again. Good. She heaved a sigh of relief. It didn't get heavier, and it didn't change. Meng Qi thought for a moment and took out a dark north pill from her storage bag. She stuffed it into little Qi's mouth and was about to say something. Suddenly, the sound of hurried footsteps could be heard from outside her room. Fellow Taoist Meng. Someone knocked on the door, and the voice sounded very anxious. Is fellow Taoist Meng here? My young palace master is injured. Please come and take a look. The voice outside paused, and then said anxiously. He said that only you can cure him. After being imprisoned by the Demon King for 3 months, Zhao Yuchen finally proved that he was really cuddling the demon in the spirit of academia, with the newly written 100 Ways of Kissing Ancient Demons. Serious and gentle student attacked by ex-cold-blooded and heartless Demon King 1v1 sweet pampering text. Chapter 23. Who's injured? Meng Qi opened the door and saw 4 Burning Sky Palace disciples standing outside. This time, Elder Sun Yin led a team to support Cool Breeze Valley. In addition to his own nascent soul stage, he also brought some Jindan and Juji disciples. 2 days ago, they all went out to exterminate demons, and even Chu Tianfeng went with them. As soon as Meng Qi opened the door, she saw 2 Burning Sky Palace disciples carrying a soft palanquin. Chu Tianfeng's body was weak, and he sat on it with a pale face. The disciple who came to knock said anxiously, "Elder Sun, the sect leader. And the elders haven't returned yet. Young Palace Master didn't allow us to inform them for fear of affecting them. He told us to find fellow Taoist Meng, and said that you can heal him." Chu Tianfeng was injured again. Meng Qi looked past the disciple, and at the youth behind him. The other's complexion did not look good, his face was pale. His thin lips were bloodless. A dark red, already solidified bloodstain could be seen at the corner of his lips. Meng Qi. He did look a bit miserable. She stepped forward, her right hand forming a spell, and started to carefully examine Chu Tianfeng's injuries. In her last life, she had stayed in the dungeon, and didn't know the entire process of the battle. They had nascent soul cultivators on their side, and the other side didn't seem weak. Then Meng Qi was silent. She took a deep breath. "The demon that injured you seemed to have a lower cultivation than you?" Chu Tianfeng looked a bit scary, but his injuries weren't serious. His spirit energy was abundant. Compared to last time when he was poisoned, his cultivation was even suppressed. This time, it was just a small injury. After taking some medicine, he would be able to jump around in a few days. "You." Meng Qi's brows furrowed slightly. Before she could speak, Chu Tianfeng interrupted her. "I'll pay, Meng Qi. As long as you can heal me as soon as possible, and let me go back to help the elders." Chu Tianfeng's eyes were like cold stars as he stared unblinkingly at Meng Qi. "Any amount is fine." "Meng Qi." Several disciples of the Burning Sky Palace also looked at her anxiously. No matter what, they were here to help Cool Breeze Valley. The Cool Breeze Valley was saved. Only Meng Qi, who was at the qi refining stage, could save himself. She took a deep breath. "Such a small injury," Meng Qi said. "Send someone to the Immortal Cloud Pavilion to buy 2 third-tier rain pills for you." "Okay." Chu Tianfeng nodded. His eyes sparkled. "Where's your consultation fee? How much should I give you?" Meng Qi hesitated. She had just received a huge sum of 277 spirit stones. To be honest, she wasn't that short of money right now. However, it was obviously impossible not to charge him. 1/4 stage spirit stone. Meng Qi said. "Okay." Chu Tianfeng raised his chin towards the disciple who carried him, indicating that he should take out the spirit stones. In an instant he felt much better, and his pale face slowly regained some color. He didn't need others to continue carrying him, and stood up from the soft sedan chair by himself. "The enemy this time is more cunning than we thought," Chu Tianfeng said to Meng Qi. "It's best that you don't leave Cool Breeze Valley during this time. The elders have set up a protective array around it to ensure the safety of the disciples of Cool Breeze Valley." "Okay." Meng Qi nodded. "Thank you for your hard work." Her expression was indifferent. Chu Tianfeng didn't seem to feel that there was anything wrong, and continued to try to find a topic. "Your sect master has already agreed to follow us to the Burning Sky Palace after this matter is over." A hint of joy flashed through his eyes, and his tone became light. "We'll be fellow sect members in the future. Young Palace Master Chu, if there's nothing else, I'm going to Cool Breeze Town. I'll take my leave first." Meng Qi bowed to him. She still had to go to Cool Breeze Town to hand over the Dark North Pill to the relay station in the sky beyond heaven, and collect her spirit stones. Just now, the jade slip reminded her that the jackdaw grass she bought had also arrived. Meng Qi was worried about Little White Tiger's injury. She already knew that Cool Breeze Valley would become a subsidiary sect of the Burning Sky Palace. It wasn't surprising. If it was before this auction, Meng Qi would have thought about whether to join the Burning Sky Palace's medical hall. She was indeed very interested in their library. But after this incident, she had already made up her mind. The less she was involved with Chu Tianfeng, the better. With the sky beyond heaven, she could always find a way to exchange for the books she needed. "I'm going too." Chu Tianfeng hurriedly followed Meng Qi and explained, "We're going to the Cloud Immortal Pavilion to buy medicine. It's on the way." Meng Qi. Those disciples of the Fantian Palace watched as the young palace master walked out of the sect with Meng Qi, as if nothing had happened. The few of them looked at each other in dismay. "Are we waiting for the young palace master here?" one of them asked. "What else can we do?" Another person shook his head helplessly. Speaking of which, one of the disciples in charge of carrying Chu Tianfeng back suddenly asked, "Do you still remember how the young palace master was injured at that time?" I was a little far away, so I didn't see it clearly. I saw it. Another person carrying the sedan said, "The young palace master's opponent was a third-stage second-realm demonic cultivator, whose cultivation was lower than his. At first, the young palace master had the upper hand, so no one thought of going up to help. Later, he recalled seriously, I seem to have seen the young palace master subdue the demonic cultivator. The other party had clearly given up struggling, so I didn't continue to pay attention. So I don't know how the young palace master was injured. FQXSW. Org. It should be that the demonic cultivator pretended to admit defeat, and then suddenly attacked the young palace master when he was unprepared. Demonic cultivators are indeed extremely cunning. We have to be careful when we meet them in the future." They looked at each other again, and saw traces of doubt in each other's eyes. But they were originally sent by Elder Sun to protect Chu Tianfeng. The young palace master was fine, which was a happy thing for everyone. No one would delve into it. Fortunately, fellow Taoist Ming was there. I heard that the young palace master was even more seriously injured last time, and was also saved by her. They quickly changed the topic. Do you think the young palace master is interested in this fellow Taoist Meng? I previously thought that the young palace master was interested in Lu Qingran of Cool Breeze Valley. But have you seen the young palace master pay attention to her these past few days? As soon as the person who spoke finished speaking, the person standing next to him quickly tugged at his sleeve. Lu Qingran, who they had just mentioned, was walking over here quickly. She saw the several disciples standing outside Meng Qi's door, and stopped with a face full of worry. I heard that Tianfeng was injured. Is he okay? The disciples looked at each other. No one spoke, but their expressions were a little strange. Lu Qingran glanced at them, and her heart tightened. She quickly walked forward, and reached out to push Meng Qi's door. What's wrong? Is it serious? Then junior sister Meng Qi. Lu Qingran had just pushed open the door when she suddenly screamed and retreated. No one saw clearly what had happened just now. Even she herself only saw a blur in front of her eyes. Then, she felt a cloud of white mist rushing towards her. Then, my face. Lu Qingran covered her face with both hands. My eyes. My eyes are also itchy. It hurts. She screamed and retreated again and again. I can't see anything. My face is so itchy. Master. The several disciples of Fantian Palace didn't know what had happened. They saw Lu Qingran screaming so miserably, so they didn't dare to go forward and touch her. Lu Qingran's scream quickly attracted some disciples of Cool Breeze Valley. The sect master and the elders were all out fighting the enemy. Most of the disciples who stayed in the sect were only at the qi refining stage. They didn't dare to touch Lu Qingran. Senior sister Lu should be poisoned. A Cool Breeze Valley disciple looked from afar and quickly said, "Look at her face and neck. There are so many red spots. There seems to be pus. She should be poisoned. What's going on? What happened just now? How could junior sister Lu be poisoned in the sect? Heavens, those red spots are still growing. It looks so disgusting. I'm a little scared." Lu Qingran only felt that her face was getting more and more itchy, and also more and more painful. She heard all the words of those disciples, and her heart became more and more frightened. She didn't dare to scratch her face and neck, but the itchy feeling seemed to penetrate into her bones and blood bit by bit. It made her want to scratch her face fiercely. Lu Qingran forced herself to calm down. She quickly took out 2 pills from her storage bag and stuffed them into her mouth. But the itchy and painful feeling didn't leave her. Her face was even hot, as if something was drilling out of her skin. Senior sister Lu, your face. There's so much pus, and it's green. What's wrong with senior sister Lu? Meng Qi. Lu Qingran couldn't care anymore and screamed, "Where's junior sister Meng Qi?" She covered her face and turned to those Cool Breeze Valley disciples. "Quickly go find junior sister Meng Qi." Oh. A disciple quickly turned around and ran out. Lu Qingran didn't dare to move. She felt more and more uncomfortable, and that itchy and painful feeling seemed to be going down her neck. Gradually, even her whole body began to itch. In Meng Qi's room, little Qi was jumping onto the bed. He lazily lay down again, but that pair of azure blue eyes were dimmer than when Meng Qi left. The protective array set up by Meng Qi at the door had 2 lines slightly changed. It didn't seem to change much, but the effect would be doubled. Little Qi closed his eyes and lay down lazily. He needed to have a good rest. Today was really too tiring. The commotion outside the door continued for a long time, but it didn't seem to affect little Qi at all. After some time, he finally heard the sound of footsteps that he was gradually getting familiar with. Little White Tiger, who was lying down lazily just now, instantly raised its head, and its 2 fluffy little ears stood up and even swayed slightly. He quickly realized that it was wrong of him to do that. How could he be happy for a girl who would forcefully hug him to sleep, and did that kind of thing the first time they met? Little White Tiger hurriedly lay down again, and rested its head on its front paws. But this time, its eyes didn't continue to close. What's going on? Meng Qi returned from Cool Breeze Town, and saw that there was a mess outside his door. The person at the door with her back facing everyone, and trembling all over was Senior Sister Lu Qingran? Junior Sister Meng Qi. Someone immediately said, Senior Sister Lu seems to have been poisoned. Meng Qi. Now they were all looking for her when they were poisoned? Junior Sister Meng. After the previous incident, the Cool Breeze Valley disciples were much more polite to Meng Qi. Especially since the young palace lord of Burning Sky Palace was standing tall and guarding behind her. Senior Sister Lu seems to have been poisoned at your place. That disciple cautiously reminded Meng Qi. Meng Qi looked up and saw that Lu Qingran's body was trembling even more violently. Junior Sister Meng Qi, I've been poisoned by you. Lu Qingran didn't need to look in the mirror to know that she must look extremely horrifying. She didn't understand why the poison seemed to have gotten worse, even though she had clearly taken the antidote. Lu Qingran didn't dare to turn around. Now, not only could she see faint yellow pus seeping out of her face, neck, and even her sleeves. It looked extremely disgusting. Can you please detoxify me first? Lu Qingran's voice trembled slightly and sounded a little pitiful. I was just too worried about Tianfeng just now and forgot to knock on the door in a moment of panic. I didn't mean to break into your room and didn't want to peek at your secrets. Don't be angry with me. Can you give me the antidote first? Meng Qi suddenly realized that Lu Qingran had wanted to enter her room, so she was injured by the protective array she had left behind. She took a step forward and was about to give the antidote to Lu Qingran. However, her wrist suddenly felt warm as Chu Tianfeng grabbed it. The youth glanced at her and took a step forward. He looked coldly at Lu Qingran and said indifferently, Lu Qingran, is this how you apologize? What do you mean you've been poisoned by Meng Qi? You didn't respect your own junior sister and barged into someone else's room without permission. You deserve to be poisoned by someone in the room. Chu Tianfeng's voice was colder than the cold pond at the top of Qingfeng Valley. If you want to apologize for doing something wrong, then apologize properly, he said coldly. Don't use me as an excuse. Chapter 24. The surroundings suddenly quieted down. Meng Qi looked at Chu Tianfeng in surprise. This young man, who doted on and protected Lu Qingran in his previous life, was looking at his senior sister coldly with a gloomy face. The disciples of Cool Breeze Valley and Burning Sky Palace didn't speak. They all stared blankly at this scene. Not long ago, they saw this young palace master carrying senior sister Lu back affectionately. Did he have a complete change of heart so quickly? Meng Qi's wrist gently twisted, and Chu Tianfeng let go of her wrist. His hand hung by his side, and his palm seemed to still have the feeling of the other party's green robe. It was a very ordinary cotton robe, but to him, it gave him an indescribable feeling of warmth. What was going on? Meng Qi frowned. Chu Tianfeng actually scolded Lu Qingran in public. Why did it feel a bit strange? I'm sorry. Lu Qingran was silent for a while, then suddenly opened her mouth weakly. She had been poisoned and worried for a long time. Now that she was mercilessly scolded by the young man she liked, her face became hotter and hotter. She didn't know if it was because of embarrassment or the effect of the poison. Tianfeng, I was really worried about you. I'm sorry. You don't have to apologize to me. Chu Tianfeng frowned and coldly interrupted Lu Qingran. He looked at her coldly. The one you should apologize to is your junior sister. I'm sorry, junior sister Mengqi. Lu Qingran gently bit her lower lip. She also didn't understand what was wrong with Chu Tianfeng. She didn't want to do anything to junior sister Mengqi. She was really worried about Chu Tianfeng. When she heard that he was injured and carried back, she hurried back to see him. She was really too worried, so she ran to junior sister's room without thinking. Oh. Mengqi narrowed her eyes and said indifferently, "Be careful next time. I really didn't do it on purpose." Lu Qingran still wanted to explain. She didn't dare to mention Chu Tianfeng again. "I was really too worried just now." "Got it," Mengqi replied casually. She didn't hate Lu Qingran. She was the daughter of the Heavenly Tao. Before she could go against the Heavenly Tao and go against the Heavenly Tao, there was no need to make things too stiff with her. Otherwise, the Heavenly Tao might find her an eyesore and kill her directly. Chu Tianfeng frowned and wanted to say something. He opened his mouth, but didn't say anything in the end. Her impatience with Lu Qingran had reached its peak. Mengqi had already taken out a pill from his storage bracelet and tossed it to Lu Qingran. Detoxification medicine. She had placed some medicinal powder in the protective array of the room that would cause abscesses. It was not that serious. At most, the abscesses would be red and itchy. Taking the medicine would relieve the symptoms very quickly. Hiss. She looked at Lu Qingran's face as she reached out to take the pill. Mengqi couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. After learning this defensive array, she rarely used it. In the past, she had directly put fatal poison in it. This time she didn't put it. She knew that when someone touched the array and activated its power, it would automatically release the medicinal powder. It could also strengthen the effect of the medicinal powder. Was this point so scary? Mengqi looked at Lu Qingran's face, which had become a little disgusting and terrifying. She couldn't help but swallow her saliva. No wonder senior apprentice sister Lu Qingran sounded like she was about to cry. She didn't even dare to face Chu Tianfeng when she took the medicine. It was really a little scary. Thank you, junior apprentice sister Mengqi. Lu Qingran quickly turned her back and took the pill. A chill instantly surrounded her, and the itchy pain on her face eased a lot. She was surprised. They were all detoxification pills. If she took the one she made herself, it would aggravate the toxicity. Mengqi's effect was immediate. When did this little junior apprentice sister, who had only been in the sect for half a year, become so powerful in medicine? No wonder the sect master said that Elder Yen admired junior apprentice sister Mengqi very much. He said that she was extremely talented and was second only to him in the sect. Lu Qingran wanted to turn her head to look at Mengqi, but then she remembered her current appearance. And Chu Tianfeng, she also didn't understand. Before she fainted because of that terrifying monster, Chu Tianfeng was still very concerned and took care of her. She heard from her senior apprentice sisters that he even carried her back to the sect. Why did he treat her so harshly the moment she woke up? If there's nothing else. Mengqi looked around at the onlookers. I'll go back to my room first. She had already received the jackdaw grass and the scroll Xue Jinwen gave her. She wanted to study it carefully. She didn't want to stand here and waste time. I'll take my leave. Lu Qingran was the first to leave. Seeing that there was no more drama to watch, the onlookers also left one after another. Chu Tianfeng took a deep look at Mengqi and said to the 4 disciples, "You guys go first." He took a step forward. "I have something to say to you." Mengqi's footsteps paused slightly. Chu Tianfeng quickly said, "Your sect master has agreed that when Elder Sun returns, the entire Cool Breeze Valley will go to Burning Sky Palace with us." He paused. "From now on, Cool Breeze Valley will be a subordinate sect of Burning Sky Palace. I've discussed it with Elder Sun. You can enter the medical hall of our Burning Sky Palace. The main purpose there is to study medicine, and there are no worldly affairs. It's very suitable for you." I want to go to Burning City, Meng Qi said. But I won't enter Burning Sky Palace. She turned her head to look at Chu Tianfeng. If Burning Sky Palace is willing to let me go with the team, I can pay spirit stones as a reward. Why? Chu Tianfeng frowned slightly. Just like how I charge for treatment, the fee for protecting me is also very reasonable. Meng Qi said matter-of-factly. I don't like to talk about favors. It's better for us to settle the accounts clearly. Ranwen, you know that's not what I'm asking. Chu Tianfeng looked at Meng Qi. I don't know. Meng Qi was a little speechless. How come she never knew that Chu Tianfeng was such a person? Where was that proud and cold young man? She felt that she still appreciated the previous Chu Tianfeng more. Young Palace Master Chu, as I said before, it's better for us not to even greet each other when we meet. Meng Qi said. You may be a little grateful that I saved you, but I charged for treatment and received a lot of spirit stones. Or even now. Besides, she paused. My senior martial sister is in love with you. You scolded her like that just now, so she must be sad and upset. I don't know where she's crying now. I don't know what conflict you two have, but I don't want to be involved in your dispute at all. Meng Qi crossed her hands and made a gesture of refusal. I don't want to at all. Please go back. After she finished speaking, she didn't give Chu Tianfeng a chance to speak and quickly walked back to her room. It wasn't in her nature to speak ill of others. Chu Tianfeng was helping her just now after all. Meng Qi really couldn't bring herself to scold or mock him. She returned to her room and carefully checked it. The array on the ground had indeed been activated. There was still a faint smell of medicinal powder left in the air. TSK, Meng Qi recalled Lu Qingrant's miserable face. Was the effect of this formation on poison so powerful? Was that, she squatted down and casually drew along the lines of the array with her fingers. If it could enhance the effect of poison, then the medicine used for treatment should have the same effect. In that case, could it be twice the result with half the effort? Meng Qi's eyes flashed and fell on the two diagonal lines in the center of the array. She remembered that it wasn't drawn like this here. She had an excellent memory and was meticulous. She was even more observant of this kind of detail. Although the array didn't change much, Meng Qi still saw it. What's going on? Meng Qi stood up, looked down at the protective array, and murmured. Did someone touch it? Or did she really draw it wrong when she left in a hurry? She swept her gaze across the entire room and confirmed that no one had touched the array in other places. Little Qi was still lying lazily on the bed, looking even weaker than when she left. His blue eyes were even dimmer. His little head rested on his paws, and his small semicircular ears seemed to have become weak. He even looked a little aggrieved. Little Qi. Meng Qi went forward and patted him. I brought back the jackdaw grass. She took out the wooden box containing the jackdaw grass from her storage bag. Apart from that, there was also a scroll sent by Xue Jinwen. Northland Herbal Medicine Compendium. Meng Qi held the bamboo scroll in her hand, and a faint light emitted from her palm. She read very quickly, and quickly found the description of the jackdaw grass. The feather-shaped black grass grows on the peak of the snowy mountains in the Northland. After being poisoned, silver blood spots can be seen on the wound, and it hasn't healed for years. There was also a method to cure the poison of the jackdaw grass. Everything else is fine, but the heavenly star grass and the blazing feather. Meng Qi frowned. She might be able to buy the heavenly star grass in the heavens beyond heaven, but what about the blazing feather? It was said that this was the feather of a phoenix from the heavenly demon clan in the demon realm. It was one of the legendary treasures of heaven and earth. Meng Qi had never seen it before. She might not be able to find it even if she searched all 3,000 worlds. A dark light flashed across the eyes of the little white tiger, who had been lying lazily. Blazing feather. Was it really them? The blazing feather. Meng Qi paced back and forth in the room. If she wanted to cure the poison of the jackdaw grass, she had to use the blazing feather. Then she frowned. Did she have to find that noisy fox, Su Junmo? He was a heavenly demon aristocrat, so he might have it. Meng Qi narrowed her eyes. She remembered that Su Junmo wouldn't appear by Lu Qingrant's side for the time being. Then where should she go to find him? The heavens beyond heaven? Meng-Chi was a little hesitant. Let's not talk about this first. She took out 2 pills and stuffed them into little Chi's mouth. One was a dark north pill, and the other was a seasonal rain pill. Before going to Fan City, let's find this medicine first. To cure the poison of the jackdaw grass, in addition to the heavenly star grass and the blazing feather, she also needed some cold spring spirit dew. This could be found at the bottom of the cold lake in Cool Breeze Valley. Meng-Chi packed her things, got up, and walked towards the peak of Cool Breeze Valley. The sect master and elders weren't around, so no one would go to the cold lake. As Meng-Chi walked towards the cold lake, she stuffed a spring warmth pill into her mouth. After all, she was only at the Chi refinement stage, so the cold lake water was still a little too cold for her. Before she reached it, Meng-Chi heard a sorrowful cry. That voice sounded very sad. But even when she cried, it was soft and exceptionally pleasant to the ears. Lu Qing ran. Meng-Chi immediately saw Lu Qing ran, who was lying on a big rock beside the cold lake, crying sadly. When she heard footsteps, she also turned around to look at Meng-Chi. Her face was full of tears, and her eyes were red. She looked very pitiful. Junior sister Meng-Chi? Lu Qing ran quickly stood up, and quickly wiped away the tears on her face. Senior sister Lu. Meng-Chi looked at her. Lu Qing ran was already at the foundation establishment stage, so the cold lake was still too strong for her. The sect master must have given her warm jade magic weapon to his beloved disciple, so she was not affected by the cold at all by the cold lake. You. Lu Qing ran stood up and looked at Meng-Chi somewhat helplessly. She was born beautiful, and even more so after crying. A beauty with tears, like a pear blossom in the rain. Junior sister Meng, did you come here for something? Lu Qing ran asked tentatively. To find something, Meng-Chi said. She took off her robe and changed into a tight-fitting water suit inside. You want to go into the water? Lu Qing ran widened her eyes in surprise. Yes. Meng-Chi stuffed 2 more spring warmth pills into her mouth. Then, Lu Qing ran seemed to be at a loss. Then do you want to? As she spoke, she took out the warm jade that her master gave her. Take this with you? No need. Meng-Chi shook her head. As she spoke, she quickly walked to the edge of the lake and jumped down easily. Even though she was wearing a water suit, the bone-piercing cold lake water still attacked her limbs and bones. Meng-Chi gritted her teeth and dove down. The cold spring spiritual dew was at the bottom of the cold lake, and there was only a very, very small spot. It would take hundreds of years to accumulate half a bottle. When Meng-Chi returned to Cool Breeze Valley after she formed her gold core, this place had already been looted by the Yaoma, and nothing was left. Only the cold lake water was still there. Meng-Chi dived into the water and searched for 3 days before she finally determined the location of the spring and found a small bottle of cold spring spiritual dew. She swam in the direction of her memory. Lianqi Xiuzhe could already breathe without relying on air, but the lake water was bone-piercing, and she didn't want to stay here for too long. Seeing that she was about to reach the spring, Meng-Chi vaguely saw a black shadow in front of her. The water of the cold lake wasn't very clear. When she was at the bottom, she usually couldn't see what was in front of her. She hesitated. The direction of the black shadow was exactly where the spring was. Moreover, the shadow looked very long and floated in the same place. It didn't look very dangerous. Meng-Chi took out her little medicine knife from her storage bag and continued to swim forward. This is... When she swam closer, Meng-Chi's eyes widened in shock. The black shadow turned out to be a person. He was wearing black clothes and was floating above the spring with his face down. A black belt was tied around his waist. The other end of the belt was tied to the spring. She didn't know if he had done this himself, or if someone had purposely tied him here. Meng-Chi swam around him. The other didn't move at all. She didn't know if he had fainted or already. Her mind moved, and she swam over and stopped next to the other. She reached out and grabbed the other's shoulder, and carefully turned him around. Meng-Chi. Floating in the cold lake water was a young man. His face was pale, and his eyes were tightly closed. His young face looked a little distorted in the water. But even so, it couldn't hide his handsome face at all. Meng Qi's thoughts paused for a moment. But the hand holding the other's shoulder seemed to have its own consciousness, and it quickly checked the man's physical condition. He was still alive. She subconsciously breathed a sigh of relief. She held a spell with one hand and tapped the man's forehead between his eyebrows, and the other hand was about to reach for the medicine in her storage bag. Meng Qi's hand had just touched the other's forehead when it suddenly froze again. This was another F*King one, a subject under Lu Qingran's skirt. And it was a super powerful one. This person was even more powerful than Chu Tianfeng, and that talkative big fox. Should she save him? Meng Qi pursed her lips. Although the man was still alive, his breathing was weak, and she could feel his pulse beating and stopping. The spiritual energy in his body was chaotic and rampaging, completely out of his control. Of course she knew why. This guy was already at the peak of the golden core stage. The cultivators in the trichiliocosm had to go through a tribulation from the golden core stage to the next stage. The tribulation lightning between each stage of the golden core stage would be very weak. But when one reached the peak of the golden core stage and wanted to enter the nascent soul stage, the tribulation lightning would be very terrifying. This guy was stabbed in the back by his former friend when he was going through the tribulation, and his spiritual energy backfired. Although he escaped with his life, now he was even worse than an ordinary chi cultivator. He must have tied himself here himself. The cold pool of spiritual water could indeed calm the spiritual energy that had become chaotic because of his spiritual energy backfire. But if he just wanted to rely on the cold pool of spiritual water, he would have to go crazy, and that might not work even after hundreds of years. Meng Qi frowned. She remembered that this person didn't appear so early. This guy only appeared after they arrived at Burnt City. Then now her eyes flashed. To save or not to save? Forget it. Meng Qi thought of what had happened in the past and let go of the other party. Anyway, he wouldn't die, so let him stay here by himself. She let go of the man and took out a small porcelain bottle from her storage bag, ready to store the cold pool of spiritual water. This thing was very rare, and there was often only a small bottle in hundreds of years. Meng Qi wasn't sure how deeply little Qi was poisoned and how much cold pool of spiritual water he needed. She simply swept away the cold pool of spiritual water that had accumulated in the spring for more than 100 years. If she couldn't use it up, she could sell it. This thing was quite rare. Although it wasn't a treasure, it wasn't cheap either. It was sold in drops. Meng Qi had just put away the porcelain bottle with satisfaction when the man in black beside her suddenly struggled wildly. He let out a roar in his throat, not knowing if it was from pain or damn it. Meng Qi was suddenly stunned. She forgot. This guy chose this place to recuperate. First, the cold pool could isolate his aura, so it wouldn't be easy to find him. Another reason was that there was cold pool of spiritual water here. This thing was especially useful for people who went crazy, and it had a great effect in calming spiritual energy. If she took it away, the man in black would be finished. Should she save him? Countless thoughts flashed through Meng Qi's mind. Don't worry about him. A voice was telling her that this person was also Lu Qingran's admirer, and he was ruthless and too much. If he died, then he died. Anyway, Meng Qi's hands hanging by her side clenched into fists. The man in black struggled even harder. His limbs seemed to be twitching, and his originally handsome face became a little ferocious. He stirred the cold pool water as he struggled. The water washed Meng Qi's body. His face was even uglier than before. Meng Qi muttered, if he died, then so be it. He wasn't a good person anyway. The most important thing was that she was alive. Damn it. Meng Qi suddenly reached out, grabbed the man's arm, and rushed towards the cold pool water with him. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.